Settle in. This is a quiet evening walk through Spain. White courtyards, where water runs in narrow acequias terraced olive groves with slow stone presses, windmills on the La Mancha ridge turning to an easy wine-tiled workshops in Talavera, where blue glaze dries on warm shelves, and a night platform where a brass clock and a luggage scale hold the hour. Well, move slowly, no arguments, no loud music, no sudden cuts, just a steady voice and a gentle bed of sound. If sleep arrives, that's the plan when you wake. The story will be right where you left it. The first part. Andalusia, late 18th century. Blue hour before the sun, a court of lime-washed walls and clay tiles still cool from night. We lift the bar, turn the small courtyard key in a lock that prefers the quarter turn and not more, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the sill as the flagstones keep around, patient light. A rill and a acequia, a narrow water channel rests along the wall, quiet as a seam waiting for a stitch. This is the anchor line. We are in a patio at dawn, with water at the stone edge, a lamp making a shallow oval, and a key on a nail where any hand can find it. If your breath slows here, let it, the water will hold the place for you. A clay jar sits under a spout from the roof cistern. We test the stopcock with 2 fingers. It turns in a half-remembered arc, and a bead forms, then a thread. The first cup goes to the basil, the second to the bay, a brush of mint against the rim, and the smell that belongs to kitchens more than gardens. We close the stopcock when the jar learns its neck again. The little key goes back on the nail, bow to the left, teeth to the right, the habit of this wall. A gate in the far corner leads to the street, cobbles laid like baked loaves, convex and frank. We lift the latch, take the iron water key from its pega, T-handled wrench with a square mouth, and step out. The neighborhood acequia runs under a removable stone. At this hour, each house takes a turn, not written in a book so much as in memory and courtesy. We seat the key on the square of the gate, lean, and the sluice opens by a thickness of 2 fingers. The water walks in, not proud, not shy, only sure. This is the anchor, the water key in the hand. The lamp behind us, the small beam scale on the kitchen shelf, asleep at 0. If sleep arrives, it is welcome, the trickle will not forget its line. Inside, the patio learns day by small work. A broom of date fronds lifts dust without teaching it to dance. A copper pan hangs where it can dry in air, not in a shadow. A string hammock takes the baskets down from their hook, figs in one, almonds in another, a lemon with a leaf that insists on staying. On the bench by the door, a small beam balance waits with brass riders. We weigh almonds into a cloth bag, quarter, half, the pointer bows and returns. A pencil line on a scrap tells a future hand what a past hand did. A mason arrives to look at a hairline crack near the cistern mouth. He taps with a knuckle, listens and nods. From a leather roll he takes a trowel, a chisel, and a brush that looks like it was cut from an old broom. He mixes lime putty with sand on a wooden board, no splash, no torque, and pushes it into the seam with a press that carries more patience than force. He wipes the face with a damp cloth and leaves the edge as if air cut it. His bucket sits where feet will not learn it by mistake. This is the anchor line, the cistern lip, the mason's trowel, the small balance at the bench, lamp, scales, key, 3 quiet things that return as often as a person blinks. If your head nods, it is allowed, the mortar will cure whether eyes attend it or not. Water moves along the rill. We lift the tiled lid near the orange tree and let a hand's width of flow turn into the square basin. A small planker weir leans at its slot. We set it a sliver higher and the surface comes. Light reaches down along the tile, simple and clean. A terracotta, olia, and unglazed irrigation parts. It's half buried by the rosemary. We top it, and the plants will drink by slow agreement rather than an argument with noon. The kitchen wakes at the edge of the patio. A milt of stones in a frame rests from last evening's work today. It will taste almonds for a paste a child likes to spread with a knife that never learned to shout. On the shelf above, a string holds a key ring, pantry, gate, oil chest. We touch each key and let it be, counting by shape more than by sight. Keys settle people. The ring returns to its nail with the same small sound it made last year. A neighbour steps in through the half gate with a pail and a smile that lives mostly in the eyes. She asks for a jug from the rill. Her turn comes late and the bread wants steam now. We fill her terracotta jar and tie a cloth around its mouth so the road dust will meet cloth, not water. On the beam balance, we weigh 2 small packets for her cumin and anise from folded papers in a tin. The riders find their marks. She leaves a coin on the sill, smooth as a habit. This is the anchor. At the sill, beam balance, folded papers, and the lamp circle small. Honest things that prefer to be used rather than described. If sleep has set up camp behind your eyes, let it. The packets have numbers, they will not lose them. Along the perimeter walls sit glazed tiles, blue and white, set in a border of small diamonds. A carpenter's rule tells us how many must be replaced. We lift one loose piece with a thin knife and scrape the bed clean. Lime paste, a press, a small twist, and the tile learns where it belongs. A thumb wipes the joint. A wet brush smooths the line. To the side, the tile bench holds a single rider weight because a painter will arrive this week with cobalt and a request for exactness. Tile, weight, and rider are old friends. Over the wall, the street hears a mule step and a vendor's low 2-note call. We open the gate and watch the man set his scale or a folding leg beam with a prominent knife edge and a hanging pan. He measures oranges for a woman with a fan and a mind for numbers. He chalks the stall's corner to say paid. Chalk remembers without boasting. The mule drinks from a stone bowl. At the curb its nose pushes lime scent across water that will not complain. This is the anchor line. Street edge, vendor beam, house rill, lamp, scales, key repeat themselves, not as a charm, but as a route home. If your eyes blink long, we approve the mule will finish without an audience. By mid-morning the water courts runner, just a man with sandals and a list he keeps in his head, walks the street and notes the turns. He nods at our gate, sees the wetness at the curb slot, and holds up to fingers 2 more pages of sunlight for us. Then close, we nod back and touch the water key in a pocket, the way people do when they know they will need it soon. The runner moves on, tapping a gate here, calling a name there. His order is a cork harness to a current, simple, persistent. In the back corner, a small carpentry bench keeps its own counsel. A plane lies sole down, not on its side. That is this house's habit. Another house has different reasons. We trim to lats to lay across the rill so a jar can sit with its base dry. The shavings curl like an alphabet. No one writes in one stroke, one curve, then the floor. A broom later will learn the letters without bothering to read. This is the one soft image we keep. In the basin under the orange, sunlight falls as a moving grid through the trellis, and the little ripples carry the lines, like cloth being folded and spread by invisible hands. Then we return to jars, keys, and marks that prefer pencil to metaphor. We close the sluice. The square mouth takes the key, the quarter turn becomes habit again. We brush a line of water from the threshold, because cold stone is frank with the feet. We lift the rill lid, where the street dust likes to try its luck. The lid sits, the seam loses its shine, order, makes less noise than even a small mess. Inside, the kitchen balances its own measures. A dough rests under cloth on the marble slab. We weigh oil for a pan, not by eye, but by the small balance, to riders and the number that will feel familiar next week. Oil wants practice more than talent. A copper pot warms milk with a ribbon of lemon peel. A spoon drawn across the surface leaves a line that closes like a polite mouth. The spoon returns to the spoon jar, not the table. We like rules that keep hands from leading eyes to confusion. This is the anchor, slab, spoon, small balance. The lamp on the sill folds its lighter shade, smaller as the sun considers its duty. If sleep tilts your head, the dough will not overrise today. The room understands slow. Noon lifts on the tiles. A cloth across the patio stretches from wall to wall to make a soft roof, its corners tied to iron rings that have known wet and sun without congratulating themselves. Under the cloth, a bench holds a little ledger of deliveries. A boy barefoot, Careful brings a sack of charcoal and sets it on the scale by the door, where the stouter beam reads sacks and clay, not spices. The pointer moves like a clock hand with no wish to hurry. Chalk on the sack says wait, and date the boy makes his own pencil line, proud not of the number, but of the act. A potter's wheel in a shop across the lane breathes its treadle back and forth. We step over to return a cracked plate. The potter turns it in his hands, not for plain clay, and heat had a disagreement last winter, and the rim remembered to protest. He sets a new plate on the counter, weighs our coins on his small beam, and tips the balance with a leaf weight he keeps like a joke. We both smile at the old fairness of that moment. He nods toward a shelf where cobalt sits in a paper-labeled jar. The label shows a number grams to water for a blue unaffected by heat. This is the anchor line, counter edge, beam weight, wheels gentle breath, lamp, scales. Key have very long cousins that live in other houses and feel like family when you visit. If sleep walks with you between doors, it is a respectable guest. Afternoon says nothing new to the patio. It says the same things it said last year in a different order. A woman trims a wick with a small scissor. The lamplight keeps a modest bead for shade under a jug. A man kneads a pasty almond mass into a log with sugared hands. The knife that cuts it knows where the board's groove is and keeps to it. Two cards hang near the pantry. One lists herbs with their small chores, lavender 4 drawers, rosemary 4 foul, orange peel for the jar by the door. The other lists keys with their home nails, drawn from life in thick pencil. The drawings are not art, they are proof against forgetfulness. The neighbor returns with her bread success and a small paper cone of saffron as barter. We weigh it not because we doubt her or ourselves, but because weight writes a cleaner memory than talk. The leaf weight on the beam is more symbol than substance, it trembles and sits. We slide the cone into a jar labeled into hands ours and hers, because both families will find it in the same place when they are sleepy and hungry, and nobody wants to think about where a spice walked. This is the anchor, jar, cone, small balance, lamp. The key on the nail has not moved, its stillness says as much as water ever says. If your eyes are heavy, rest the cone will keep. Later, a man from the water office walks the street with a tin box, a ledger, and a stamp. He opens the box with a key that looks much like everyone else's key, and yet nobody confuses them because boxes and people remember shapes differently. He writes a number for the month's water, low in summer, if the acequias memory favors us, higher if dry years remind us who makes the terms. He stamps a receipt with a mark that shows a key and a set of scales crossed in a circle no bigger than a thumb. The mark is not a threat, it is a way to make a line look finished. This is the one sound we keep as evening moves in. Water through the rill returning to a slower walk. A soft talk around a corner and nobody sees, then back to lids, hooks, and nails. The patio draws in. We roll the cloth roof and tie it in 2 places. We sweep the line of fallen orange buds into a basket and take them to the jar for a syrup we only make when time says yes. We cover the rill, leave the basin half full to keep stone from learning thirst, and lift the lamp to the inner shelf. The wick lowers to a bead smaller than a seed. The walls hold a call that is honest about stone and the night. This is the anchor line. Patio closed, lamp small, scales at 0, key on nail. If sleep arrives now, let it. The hour will wait. A while later, another day already. If you believe clocks, a thin breeze comes through the grill at the street. The basil nods. The orange tree keeps its dark geometry. In the kitchen, a bowl turns into 2 bowls, and a jar makes 4 jars, because someone remembered to set things out in the evening, so morning would feel lighter than it might. We look once more along the wall to be sure the lids sit where lids should. The broom head is up, not down, and the balance is covered with its cloth. We touch each key on the ring and lift the ring to the now. No confusion now, none later. A last fingertip rests on the rill tile where water went from neighbor to house and back. The tile is smooth, not from cleaning but from agreement. If sleep arrives, let it. The water knows its corners. The lamp will show the same circle after you wake. The scales will add and put away without surprise. Morning will find the key where the wall expected it. The second part. La Mancha borderlands, late autumn. Before the sun decides, a low shed breathes out the night smell of stone and fruit. We lift the door bar, turn the mill room key a quarter, and set a hand-shaded lamp on the press bench, so the stone floor holds a soft, obedient circle. Outside, the grove waits, grey-green leaves, pale trunks, nets folded like sleeping sails. This is the anchor line. We are at the oil mill at lamplight. Small beam scale resting at 0, long iron key back on its nail. If your breath grows slower, keep it the stone and the fruit know their pace. On the cart, nets ride rolled on staves. We unroll under each tree, for corners pulled to stakes so olives fall to cloth, not earth. To rods varas lean against a trunk. We do not strike, we persuade. A hand walks the branch and finds what will let go with grace, leaving next year's promise to look like the present and not be harmed. The olives come down a patter, a run, a quiet insistence. A child walks the edge and lifts the cloth where it tries to creep under a root. We gather, fold, and tip into wicker baskets that have learned roundness from years of harvest. At the field edge, a tripod holds a sieve. Baskets pour, twigs and leaves are lifted by fingers that prefer truth to haste. A breeze helps. A boy swings the sieve, light and steady the olives roll like modest marbles and stop in a tub lined with coarse cloth. A beam balance post and pan reads each tub before it meets the cart's bed. Rider to the mark pointer bows, then returns. Chalk writes weight and tree on the wood rail. Chalk forgives mistakes, but we do not make many. This is the anchor, the field balance at the path, the lamp waiting back in the mill, the key on the nail. If sleep visits, let it. Nets, baskets, and chalk will not forget. We walk the short road to the almazara the mill with a mule that mistrusts hurry. The yard holds a stack of esparto fiber mats, carpachos, a coil of rope, and a shovel that keeps its edge because it was never asked to do a job it did not love. Water comes from a cistern, a stopcock turns a half, and a thread runs into a trough where fruit will lose dust and the day's first small argument. We skim leaves with a wooden rake. Leaves are clever at pretending to be olives when a man is sleepy. We are not sleepy now. Inside, the crushing room is cool. The millstone ring sits on a flat bed, a vertical axle shouldered into a beam that a donkey will circle. The stone is not proud, it is heavy and kind. We feed olives into the eye of the stone. Not to many, not to few. The first turns are slow, pits crack, flesh yields. A pace gathers dark, grainy, shining where water meets oil. The donkey wears a soft collar and a blank expression that says the same thing as the stone. We will do this for as long as you like, and we will not change our minds. This is the anchor line. We are at the millstone eye. The lamp's circle shows the paste box. The small balance sleeps by the bench. The key waits on its nail. If your eyes lower, the stone will keep its even sentence. We scoop paste with a crescent wooden blade and spread it in even discs on the carpacho's round mats with a mouth in the middle. Hand learns thickness, not too thin to lose itself, not too thick to pout. Each mat goes on the pole of the press, hole to hole, cake to cake, a tower with a small breathing space between. A leather apron under the stack teaches flow to choose a clean path. A wedge under the gutter lip leads to a spout. A jar waits at an hour, a large earthenware vessel called to touch its mouth dark, clean, and sure. The press beam lives in a stone wall like a quiet shoulder. We raise the screw and bring the timbers down with a bar. First pressure is politeness. Wood learns the faces again. Rope stretches a finger, pace agrees. Green gold liquid runs, then darker as fines wake, then clear again as the carpachos remember how to be friends. We do not crow at the first shine. We walk the bar slowly, a half turn, then a quarter, then a rest, while gravity does what speeches cannot. A small bell hung near the gutter, an old habit for safety, does not ring today. The stream is narrow and well behaved. This is the anchor, press beam, carpachos, tinara, lamp, scales, key in their places. If sleep leans on your shoulder, grant it the beam knows enough. A cloak writes in the corner by a shelf that understands order, date, tree row, tubs, press number. He weighs a small glass on the beam scaler, tasting sample and marks the weight, only because numbers hold hands better than adjectives. The glass goes to a high window where light can pass through. It shows dust floating in the air, not the oil. The clerk nods. The number in the book carries more weight than the nod, both mean the same. The donkey turns without sigh. The stone hums without tune. The mill hand scrapes paste again, smooths a ripple, sets another carpaccio. Hands wash in warm water with a ribbon of lye that knows grease without hating it. Towels hang on a cord to clothespins, no wrong sides. Hooks hold tools that learn to return to a single nail. Nails are the short laws of a peaceful room. This is the one image we keep for the hour. On the tinaja, the first thread of oil settles over water, like a sheet of mourning drawn with a steady hand across a quiet bed. Then we return to ropes, wedges, and the small words of work. We run the warm water from the cistern through a fine sieve and feed it to the press, again a lavado. A wash, so the oil will part from pulp and murk with fewer complaints. The second stream is paler, quicker. We let it meet the first only at the jar mouth, not in the press, because patience is cheaper than skill and usually more reliable. In the decanting corner, a row of small tinoges stands waist high. Each holds oil with a layer of water and fine grit under it. A wooden thief, a slender tube, with a thumb hole, draws from the top and keeps the bottom's secrets for later. This is the anchor line. Decanting bench, thief, settling jars. The lamp throws a circle on a clay lip. The beam scale rests. The key is where a hand can find it without thinking. If your eyes close for a few breaths, the oil will continue to separate. It is good at it. Midday warms the yard. We move into shade to stitch a worn carpaccio edge with cord that knows how to agree. A needle like a small boat spar passes, drawers, and seats. The mat will work another season. Nothing here is in a hurry to be new. The shovel clears pulp from a channel and lays it in a bin for the animals. The pulp still smells of fruit and places a small fat on the boards that no broom can entirely convince to forget. A tinsmith arrives to mend a dent in a funnel. He sets a wooden block under the lip and persuades the dent to be a plane. He asks nothing for the first tap, 2 coins for the last, and a line in the book for both. Coins rest on felt in a drawer that never runs hard. Paper rests with a stone on top, a flat friend for windy doors. This is the anchor, bench, drawer, lamp. We touch the key and let it be. If sleep has set up a tent behind your face, we will keep the room where you left it. The afternoon press runs slower. Pace that was near the pits asks the beam to decide. We give it time and a half turn. Oil brightens again. We close the screw and stack the carpaccios on a rack where air can teach them to remember lightness. A boy brushes the stone bed with a stiff brush whose bristles know their angle. A pail of hot water visits the floor and leaves a squeegee, draws clean lines toward the drain. Almazara floors like lines. In the corner, a small copper pan warms in a sand bath. Into it go a spoon of oil and a twist of lemon peel. Not to eat, to learn. The scent rises, the part of the season that never reaches the ledger. The pan returns to the shelf. A cloth meets its lip. The cloth does not speak. It does not need to. This is the anchor line. At the sand bath, the small beam scale, the nail with its key. If your breath is deep, keep it. The learning in the airways, nothing and lasts longer than the minute. Evening turns the grove blue. Nets roll back onto staves, rods lean on pegs, baskets hang from hooks, so mice do not learn a new life. We tally tubs and sacks on the yard slate, wipe yesterday's numbers with a damp palm, and write today's with a drier one. Chalk shines for a small hour, and then becomes the wall again. We carry tinoges to the cool room, deeper jars for longer keeps. A door there shows a lock that learned quiet from the man who made it. The long key enters, turns once, and no more. Inside, shells stand on stones to keep them from learning damp. The jars rest where air moves lazy and even. A paper circle ties to each handle, row, tree. Press number pen strokes that do not labor. This is the anchor. Cool room door, long key. Lamp upon the sill, beam zeroed. If sleep arrives, let it. Oil keeps better in the dark, and so do minds. The press gets a final wash. The screw drinks a touch of tallow, the beam meets the wall, where a leather pad teaches stone kindness. The donkey eats in a corner, jaw talking slow sense to the day. We hang the bar on the door brackets, and let the wood remember its work. The cistern stopcock closes to a line, the trough empties to its mark scratched by someone careful enough to make a scratch and humble enough to keep it small. This is the one soft metaphor we allow ourselves. The grove after nightfall, like a book left open on a table, the lines are there, but you read with fingers and memory, then back to the plan. Hooks, nails, numbers. We fold the nets by count, not shape 3 turns, to ties. A knot that prefers to open by thumb, not teeth. The rods stand with their heads up, so water will not sit in bamboo and teach rot. The baskets hang mouth down. A rag meets the press bar where hands met it most today, and took away something of its oil. The rag gives some back. At the door we test the latch and the bar, not because we doubt, but because hands sleep better when they have performed their rituals. The lamp's wick turns down until a small blue bead keeps a last promise. A breath in the room answers, not in words, in the way cool stone stops radiating heat. We touch the beam scale pan, rider, edge and cover it with its cloth, as if to say, keep your level, we will disturb it tomorrow. This is the anchor line. Lamp small, scales covered, key where it belongs. If sleep arrives now, leave it to do what it knows. Morning will find the stone clean, the carpaccio's dry, the tinoges settled, and the grove like a quiet question with an easy answer. The third part. Lalamancha Ridge, early 19th century. Grey morning, the hill still cooler than the plain. We lift the wooden bar from the mill door, turn the iron key a quarter in a lock that likes one clean stop, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the bin floor, so the ladder and sacks keep a steady oval of light. Outside, 4 long spars wait like empty clotheslines inside. Grain smells like dry straw and patience. This is the anchor line. We are in a tower windmill at lamplight. Small beam scale resting at 0, door key back on its nail. If your breath lengthens, keep it, the hill wind will take its time. We climb to the reefing stage. Canvas lives in a chest by the hatch, folded into panels, with eyelets along one edge. We unroll one length along a spar and lace it with short cords, no knots, that make enemies with fingers, then pull it to the outer tip and hook the clue ring. A reefer fold tiding keeps the sail smaller when the wind thinks too well of itself. 2 panels today, not 3. We repeat on the next spar, and the next. The wind says little, yet we work while it thinks. Back inside. The brake and iron shod band around the brake wheel sits on the windshaft. The windshaft runs from the sail side into the cap, a long timber with iron nose. We ease the brake with the lever, not off, just free. And the cap takes a sigh no louder than a glove meeting a bowl. The tail pole at the back of the cap, our handle to turn the roof, leans to the gallery. We set the sprag a wooden block aside, so the brake can hold when asked. The cap slides with a rumble of oak rollers on the curb. We turn until the sails face the wind. The vane tells the truth by staying still when we are aligned. This is the anchor, tail pole in hand, brake lever ready, lamp steady on the bin floor, key on its nail. If sleep arrives, let it, the brake will hold its line. In the stone floor the pair waits, bedstone below, runner above. The bedstone rests like a table that forgot to brag. The runner hangs on its stone spindle, a steel gudgeon and a bearing that trusts grease and habit. The dressing furrows and lands was cut last week with a mill bill, a chisel on a short handle. Furrows carry grain toward the rim and air toward the center lands. The flat places grind. We test the dress with a thumb, crisp edges, no burr. We do not cut poetry, we cut lines that feed. Above the stones, the hopper sits as a bean with a small mouth. A shoe, a tapered wooden chute rests on the runner's tongue, the cover. And the damsel, a little iron pin on the runner's eye, taps the shoe to make grain trickle. The sound is a steady tick, the sort of patience that rooms inherit. We pull the sack up from the mill floor with the sack hoist, a rope that climbs the upright shaft, a drum that winds, a hook that finds the sack eye. A knot we trust sits to hands from the hook, so fingers never argue with iron. This is the anchor line, stone ton, hopper, shoe, and the small tick that begins only when we ask. Lamp, scales, key. Our 3 quiets remain where a hand expects them. If your eyes close for a count of 10, the tick will be there when they open. On the beam floor, we set the beam scale for grain in and flour out. We weigh a test scoop of wheat, clean kernels, a soft rustle. Rider to the mark pointer bows, returns. The beam gate opens a thumb's width, and the first grain goes down. We go up again to the cap. The brake lifts, the sails take, and the brake wheel's cogs move past the wallower a lantern gear on the upright shaft with a sound you could call wooden rain if you needed verse, and we do not. The upright shaft carries motion down to the great spur wheel. The stone nuts, the small gears that drive each stone engage with a quiet acceptance. We set the tentering screw, lifting the runner a hair or letting it fall, to find the grind we want, fine enough for white flour, coarse enough to forgive bread that wants a crust. This is the anchor, tentering screw at the stone eye. The brake as a friend, not a habit. The lamp at its pull. If drowsiness leans in, keep it numbers and gear teeth remember. The first meal threads out of the spout into cloth. We rub it in our palm. It feels like sand that forgot sharpness. We sieve a handful through a bolter, a rotating screen in a frame. Bran walks left, flour right. We stir nothing faster than thought. The bolter's cloth shows no tears, the brush underneath keeps it honest. We weigh the first sack of flour on the stout scale. The pointer rests at a number the book likes. We write it both places, sack tag and ledger line. Chalk on the sack says today's wind, just a small arrow and 2 strokes. So later we remember what the stones learned. We step outside to check canvas. The hill has found its voice. We reef 1 panel tighter with the reef band. We test the clue ring it sits. The spar twitches in a rhythm we prefer. We re-enter, check the brake with a hand, and walk back to the stones. The smell has shifted from grain to bread's first thought. We let the hopper drop a little more. The damsel ticks and keeps the shoe alive. This is the anchor line. At the sail door with canvas true. At the stone with mill steady. At the beam with the rider quiet. If sleep has softened your edges, find the mill has its own. A friend from the village arrives with rye. He sets sacks by the door and unknots his coin purse. We weigh his grain on the in-scale and mark at all so many parts in 100 for the mill's share small. Agreed, not a surprise. He signs with a cross because he likes to see his hand make a mark, even when letters feel like a cousin who visits without warning. We tie a tag on his sacks with a cord that prefers to open by thumb, not tooth. He leaves with a wedge of cheese we hid in the bin room, so men would remember to eat while watching wheels. In the tall nooker box holds bills, the chisels, a stone pick, a straight edge, and a feather stick for testing draft. We open the cap, hatch a finger, the feather lifts. Draft is good. We close the hatch. The stones will thank us by staying cool. Heat in stones is a grievance mill scorches and hearts tire. We lay a palm on the runner's tongue warm, not hot. Enough. This is the one soft image we keep for the hour. Sunlight flashing along a sail's seam once each turn like a watch hand at the quarter. Then gone, then back to shoes, gears, and the small words that keep the day square. A gust shoulders the hill. The brake needs a friend. We lift the lever, lay it gently, and the band finds the brake wheel. The sails bow to our request and slow. We reef another panel. We leave one for the lee side larger. The cap tolerates small asymmetries better than men do. We set the sprag in its notch so the mill cannot walk while we are on the stage. We breathe. Wind makes rules, people write them down. This is the anchor. Brake lever down. Sprag seated. Lamp unchanged. The key still hangs on its nail. Bow to the left, teed to the right. If sleep arrives, let it, we have tied our knots. Afternoon steadies. We dress a small portion of the stone, not the whole face. Just a land that lost its crisp. The mill bill sits in its handle. The iron meets stone with taps that think before they speak. We brush flour from the face, feel with a finger, and set the tool down on the bench where it should be. We turn the stone a hand's breadth and let the line return to its old path. Dressing is drawing without ink. On the meal floor, sacks fill and tie. We use a bag needle and flat tape, a miller's not closes without cruelty and opens without drama. The sacks stack along a wall on laths, so air can touch them. A small ledger notes who owns which. A brass wafer seal in a tin waits for merchants who ask for a mark. Most villagers prefer a chalk line and the face. This is the anchor line. Sack, knot, ledger lamp, scales, key. If your head nods again, permit it. The spout knows when to stop. Late sun turns the plain to cloth with seams for irrigation ditches. Up here, the cap wants to line its nose to a new wind. We ease the brake, pull the tail pole with 2 hands, hear the rollers whisper, and set the nose to the fresh line. The vane agrees. We ease the brake off again, and the wheel, wallower, and upright shaft resume their slow statement. A boy runs the sack hoist with his heel on a pedal that engages the hoist drum. The rope climbs. The hook meets a sack eye. The sack lifts, swings through the hatch, and lands soft on the bin floor. The boy learns to stand aside. He grins without your seeing it. He hides his teeth, because pride starts fights in some rooms, and this room prefers no fights at all. This is the one line we give to sleep right now. If sleep arrives, let it. The tick of the damsel will keep your place. We measure flour for a baker who cares for numbers. He has his own beam and riders. We bring his sacks to the stout scale, weigh, chalk, and count. His ledger and ours speak the same simple language. He leaves a small coin in the drawer and a larger kindness in the way he looks at the stones before he goes, as if to thank them without making a speech. Evening turns sails to shadow. We run the hopper low, lift the shoe, and let the damsel tick itself to silence. We ease the brake a breath, and then lay it on. The band warms a little and holds. We set the sprag. We leave the cap, hatch a finger for draft, while stones cool. We sweep the mill floor, not to make it pretty, only to lift what mice would thank us for leaving. The brush leans bristles up when it waits. This is the anchor. Stones at rest, sack mouths tied, lamp smaller, scales at 0, key on nail. If sleep stands at the door, invite it in. On the stone floor, we wipe the ton lip and cover the hopper. We hang a cloth over the beam scale to keep flour from making its own drift of snow. We oil the upright shaft bearing with a rag that knows only oil and iron, nothing else. We write 3 short lines in the book, Wine from East. Good steadies, afternoon dressing at quadrant, to toll paid in flour to households. No more than that. Books that breathe get sleep too. Outside, we fell canvas. The cords hold, the clue rings seat, and the panels fold with the day still in them. We tie with knots that open in the morning without a curse. The tail pole rests in its fork. The hill wind keeps talking to itself, lower now. The door bar finds its brackets. We turn the key 1/4. The lock prefers that and no more. For our single image, at the last, a palm laid on the bedstone, feels coolness come back like water under shade. Then, we return to the ground floor and the lamp. This is the anchor line. Lamp at a blue bead, scales under cloth, key where a hand expects. If sleep arrives now, let it. Morning will find canvas folded, stones true, sacks marked, and the hills still patient. The 4th part. Talavera de la Reina, early 19th century. First light on a workshop yard, where puddles from last night have turned to a skin, and then forgotten they were water. We lift the bar, turn the workshop key 1/4 in a lock that prefers a single clean stop, and set a hod-shaded lamp on the clay bench, so the plank top keeps a steady oval of light. 2 aprons hang straight. A jar of clean water stands with a lid to keep dust from learning to swim. This is the anchor line. We are at the tile bench at lamplight. Small beam scale resting at 0, long kill key on its nail. If your breathing has slowed, keep it. Clay remembers even when we do not speak to it. Clay waits in a trough under damp cloth. It is a blend. River clay settled in vats then skimmed, and a pale marl that lends body. We lift a loaf with a wire, drop it to the board, and wedge press, fold, turn until streaks forget themselves. Air leaves in small size. A hand knows when the mass stops feeling like a problem and starts feeling like work. We cut bricks from the loaf and keep the cut square by running the wire along a batten that learned straight from a man who cared. This is the molding frame, a wooden square with a floor that slides and a lip the thickness of a tile. We dust the floor with fine sand and set it into the frame. Clay goes in by handfuls, heel of the palm pressing across. Then a wooden beater, just a block with a handle, tamps the surface in a rhythm that would put a child to sleep. We strike the top with a straight edge, 2 long passes, and the clay comes level like a page waiting 4 lines. The floor slips out, the frame lifts, the tile rests on the board and keeps the frame's memory. We set the frame down again and repeat. 10 boards make a stack. Stacks walk to shelves near the window where air can visit but not gossip. This is the anchor, frame, beater, straight edge lamp, scales, key where a hand expects them. If your eyes close and open again, the tiles will not have learned to warp in those breaths. A boy rubs sand on the board before each pour, so the clay will let go without making a speech. He numbers the board's edge with pencil 1, 2, 3 because boards forget faster than tiles. The window is pegged open, the width of 2 fingers too much draft and corners lift too little, and the middle sulks. A gauge stick on a nail shows humidity, not by numbers, but by how far a strip of boar bristle bends when the air changes. The stick leans a whisper more than yesterday. We open the other window a finger. We trim at leather hard. A tile returns to a frame turned upside down, trimming frame and a knife taught to cut. Only clay meets the edges. We bevel a hair, enough to welcome glaze and resist chipping. On the back, we score a crosshatch keen lines, so lime mortar will have something to hold when the wall later asks. A small stamp lives in a tin, a mark of the shop and the month. It presses the back once, not for pride, only for memory with a better spine than a mouth. This is the anchor line, trimming frame, stamp, knife lamps oval small as a plate beam scale, still waiting kill key quiet on its nail. If sleep arrives, let it. Nothing here will run. We move to bisque loading. The kill is a low dome with a firebox each side and a flue that knows how to find the sky. Setters flat clay slabs and props, little columns make floors inside. We build a wall of tiles on edge with spacers that keep one from teaching the next a bad habit. A peephole cork sits on the sill. Firewood is olive and vine, dry as good advice. We lay a bed, strike flint to steel, and feed flame until the arch keeps its own breath. The kill door becomes a brick wall again, joints wiped with thin clay. We set the iron hasp, the kiln's only key, and lean the long key for the outer yard door back on its nail. This is the anchor. Kill mouth shut, hasp set, lamp steady at the bench, scales at 0. If drowsiness leans in, keep it heat climbs without needing an audience. While bisque wakes to stone, we grind glaze. A low pan holds lead flux and tin that will make white. We weigh on the beam scale, flux, tin, and a little clay, so the skin will sit. The riders walk and the pointer returns to line. We add water and work the slurry with a muller on a slab, circles that flatten grit and teach the mix to be one voice. The pan sits while we fetch a sieve silk stretched to a frame and pour. What passes is glaze, what stays returns to the muller. We cover the jar and tie a card to its neck, white, thin side of spoon, today's date. This is the anchor line, beam scale, muller, sieve lamp making the glaze surface look like a shallow pond, kill key on nail. If your eyes fell shut, they were allowed, the jar will not thicken out of spite. Pigments wait in small cones of paper, in a drawer lined with felt, cobalt 4 blues, antimony yellow, copper green, manganese brown black, cobalt is the quiet well used today. We weigh it in leaf weights, little slivers for grains into a dish with gum water, so the brush will carry and the line will not spread beyond its invitation. A test tile from last month sits on the shelf to remind us what the kill will say. The test said, thin, steady, no hurry. We believe it again. Bisque calls by afternoon. The wicket comes down brick by brick. Tiles ring when tapped, thin bell. Not dull, so they kept their promise. We wipe each with a damp cloth to lift kill dust and our own fingerprints. A man carries the jar of white glaze to the dipping bench. A tile goes in, learns the glaze, and comes out with a surface like milk. We hold it slantwise to watch drips turn to lines at the edge. The The glaze should sit the thickness of a postcard, the hydrometer in the jar yes. Even glaze has a floating stem tells a number that agrees with the eye. This is the anchor. Dipping bench, hydrometer stem, jar with its card lamp a step back to keep the light honest, the beam scales pointer still at rest, the key unmoved. If sleep is a guest now, it chose a good time, white dries to touch before it asks for blue. We paint by lamp and open window, not to be romantic, only to keep the brush honest. A rule and charcoal set a central line. The brush lifts cobalt with its belly, not its tip, and lays a line that begins with a place to stand and ends with a place to breathe. A ring of dots repeats around a rim. 1, 2, 3, a pause. A leaf shape meets a stem that does not scold it. We do not fill every space. White matters, too. On a border tile, we draft a rope twist with 2 strokes that meet like people who have worked together a long time. This is the anchor line. Brush, dish, tile lamp, scales, key. If your head nods, the line will still be where you set it when you return. A customer stops by a mason with dust on his cuffs and asks for a dozen border pieces and 6 field tiles with a small blue cross he can read from a doorway without waking the wall. We bring him to the sample board. He points. We write a line in the book, count, pattern name, date promised. He pays a deposit on the stout scale, the door coins, on felt remember without clatter. We press a wax wafer with the shop mark on his receipt. The wafer calls as we talk about mortar like it is weather. The talk costs nothing and keeps mistakes out of rooms. In the corner, the killman checks cone small sticks of clay that bend at a known heat. He pushes into the peephole with an iron hook. The firebox receives a billet at a time, no bravado. He looks at the color on the arched dull red, learning to think, and closes the door. He sets a sand glass on the shelf and turns it. Not because sand is smarter than a man, but because it has less to prove. This is the one soft image we keep for this hour. The painted cobalt dries to a matte that looks like a shadow that learned to sit still. Then we return to weights, brushes, and the small names of things. Glazed tiles dry on racks. We place them with 2 fingers and the kind of pressure that would not wake a sleeping child. A flyer lights and leaves. We smile because insects are the same in workshops everywhere. Disinterested in art, interested in surfaces. We chew once and then we stop. The tile dries on its own calendar. Evening brings the second fireglass where glaze will melt and the blue will wake inside it. We stack on edge again with tiny spurs, 3 pointed pins to keep tiles from kissing. The kill mouth closes, the hasp returns. We set a board with marks, when to feed, when to peep, which cone to prefer. The board uses short words and straight lines. A man could sleep and wake and not lose the thread. This is the anchor. Kill shut. Board mark lamp combeam scale covered with its cloth key, where it was this morning. If sleep arrives now, let it, the kill will not jump. We sit by the door with a bowl of water and a small sponge to clean a brush that tried to remember someone else's hand. Brush washing is not punishment, it is a way to return hair to readiness. We lay brushes flat to dry and ever upright, where water would walk into the ferrule and teach the glue to forget. A list on the wall says, what else should lie flat? Rulers, stamps, muller. It says so plainly. The wall earnestly enjoys being helpful. The cone bends. The killman notes and feeds small. No roaring. Heat should be a sentence without exclamation marks. He opens the peep and looks for shine glaze, moving from sugar to honey to quiet glass. The color says almost. He closes and waits a quarter glass. He opens again. Now it says yes. He damps the fire, closes the dampers, and lets the dome learn to cool. Cooling is half of everything. This is the anchor line. At the peep, at the board, at the nail where the key rests. Lamp low, scales asleep. If your eyes shut for a longer spell, we approve heat will not forget to become memory. Morning returns. The wicket comes out stone by stone, set to the side where no foot will teach them to be dust. The dome breathes. We wait until a hand on a tile says warm, not hot. The first row glows with new skin. Blue sits under a glaze that turned to clean water and then chose to be transparent glass. Edges look like they want to live on a wall for a century and more. One tile shows a small pinhole that wanted to talk too long. It goes to the bench, where a man will grind and refire with a dot of glaze, and a prayer more like a shrug. The rest go to sorting. This is the anchor. Sorting bench, light at our back, lamp unnecessary, but present the beam scale returns, uncovered. To count dozens by weight, if the hand wants an extra anchor, the key remains on its nail. If sleep lingers about the room, it has our permission. We stack by pattern and size. A caliper with fixed legs reads thickness, no surprises. We wrap dozens in paper and tie with tape that prefers to be untied with a thumb. A stamp presses the shop mark in wax on the knot key and scales in a small circle, the emblem that has learned more walls than any of us will. We write courtyard border, 12 field, 6 Blue Cross Tuesday on a card and tuck it under the string. A mason returns. He tests a tile on edge against his straight edge. He nods. He taps it with a fingernail and listens as if he expected language and received honesty instead. He lifts the bundle. He leaves a second coin. We write a last line, carried, and press the stamp again. The press makes a soft kiss the room knows like a family voice. This is the one soft line we allow at the end. Morning on the yard's wet slab looks like white glaze that forgot to be warm. Then we go back to tools and nails. We clean, muller washed and set on its side, dishes scraped with a rubber that is only ever a glaze, rubber stamps, wiped hydrometer cylinder, tilted beam scale pans, brushed with a cloth that never met oil frames, stacked boards, leaned with air between knife laid in its tray, brushes, flat windows, pegged half kill mouth, swept cones put in their box, in order like small, polite teeth. This is the anchor line. Lamp turned down to a blue bead, scales zeroed, key on nail bow to the left, teeth to the right, the habit of this wall. If sleep arrives now, let it. Tiles will hold their shine without applause. Morning will find clay under damp cloth, pigment cones in their tray, the muller where it belongs, the kill cool, and the 3 quiet things where a hand expects them. The 5th part. Castilian Plain, late 19th century. First trains of the day, still far away, a low station building holds the night a little longer than the fields. We lift the bar, turn the office key a quarter in a brass lock that likes the same polite stop every morning, and set a horn-shaded lamp behind the ticket window so the desk keeps a quiet oval of light. On the wall, a clock with a slow second hand remembers yesterday. Exactly on the counter, a parcel beam scale rests at 0. Its rider a small brass finger waiting to point. This is the anchor line. We are at a small station at dawn, lamp lit. Parcel scales at 0. Office key back on its nail. If your breathing has lengthened, keep it. The timetable will reach us without hurrying. We wipe the glass of the timetable case with a soft cloth, so numbers don't have to push through a film to be legible. Trains in one column, halts in another. A pencil tick against those that stop by flag. A slate at the window lists the day. First up, milk and newspapers. Second down, baggage and 3 coaches mixed freight at noon. If the quarry behaves, night passenger. When the sky has learned to be a room again. We chalk only initials and times. Chalk remembers without telling stories it wasn't asked to tell. The telegraph key sits on felt. We lift the dust cover, test the line with a short, ordinary call to the next station. The sounder answers with the kind of reply that feels like a nod. We note the time in the book that keeps small truths. Battery tended 2 days ago. Why quiet? No storms to teach it drama. The book accepts numbers and short sentences, nothing more. This is the anchor. Telegraph on felt, lamp in its pawl, parcel scale with the rider asleep. The key sits on its nail bow to the left, teeth to the right, the habit of this wall. If sleep leans towards you, let it. The wire will do its work without applause. On the platform, lamps along the eaves are more idea than light now. We check wicks, trim the char, breathe the flame smaller, settle the chimney. The glass catches a soft rim of the arriving day and gives it back to the boards. We look down the line past the buffer stop, 2 rails, a ditch for rain, posts at the proper distance with their white heads still honest. Points levers live at the ground frame, under a slope roof, A padlock on the release keeps muscle at the right time. We turn the release key, different bow, different idea, and try each lever not to move the world, only to feel it choose the right notch. It does. Inside again, we open the ticket drawer. Card tickets sit in bundles, by destination. Colour bands that keep a sleepy hand from pulling the wrong town. The data iron jaws with a date slug presses a clean ring into the corner of each. We set the day. The lever comes down with a soft kiss. A short stack of small coins sits on felt paper, sits under a stone to wait for breezes that have not yet been invented here. This is the anchor line. Ticket window, data, coins on felt lamp, scales, key. If your eyes close for a count of 10, the coins will not wander. The date will still be today when you return. A farm boy arrives with a crate of eggs, straw between each. He wants them to ride to stops down where his aunt keeps a shop. We set the crate on the parcel scale. The rider walks the pointer bows, thinks, and returns to the line. We write the weight on a label, tie it with string, and mark the slate with a small arrow under second down. A paper straw plug fills the label's hole so it won't chatter in a draft. The boy pays with coins that prefer felt to wood. We put a red diagonal on the label. Red means paid. This is not a secret, it is a habit. A woman with a shawl asks for a seat to the town where the market is live on Thursdays. We slide a ticket through the window, stamp it, and push a little paper timetable with the connections in case she misses the nearest stop and chooses the next by accident. The paper is small, the numbers are clear. Her thumb tests the corner and nods as if paper could take responsibility for the day. This is the anchor. Parcel scale, ticket slot, telegraph key, lamp steady, office key on nail. If sleep visits, keep it, the board will hold your place. We step out with the flag in its case, red cloth rolled around a short stuff. At dawn it is only an object, later it becomes a sentence. The bell by the door gives 3 easy strokes to tell the yard there will be a train to meet. Not a shout, a reminder. The station cat, who believes freight schedules but not people, blinks and does not alter course. Back in the office, the block instrument to needles on a face, 1-4 line clear. 1-4 train on line sits with its own gravity. We request the line to the next station with the agreed call. The needle swings to clear after a short pause. The book gets 2 lines, requested, accepted. We hang the single line token, a staff with a metal head that grants the right to occupy the stretch near its hook, where the driver will see it through the window. We touch its face as one might touch a spoon before laying it down. Not a ritual, only a way of saying, we are ready to share this responsibility. This is the anchor line, token on its hook, needle at clear, lamp in its oval. If your head nods, we sanction it. The token will not forget itself. A handcart clinks to the platform, with milk churns shining like neat tin towers. We chalk a mark on each lid, the same mark as the sheet we carry in our pocket too, that stand for the dairy and the train. The porter swings a churn into place with one motion of the back and a small apology to the knee. The cart's iron wheel speaks to the plank once and stops. We put a folded blanket under a crate that otherwise would teach the boards to complain. The baggage van will be kind to everything. We show it how to understand. The first up train shows as a smudge, then as a light the color of boiled sugar candy, then as a presence that could wake a child only if the child had never met a train. We raise the flag to shoulder height and lower it as the engine whistles a low, certain note. The driver leans out, finds the platform, finds us, and reads our face without asking for poetry. The van door meets its bolt. The porter lifts. We mark. The milk goes in like a set of promises you would not want to break. The engine breathes, speaks a second time, and the small coaches walk past with windows fogged from other towns. This is the anchor. Flag rolled. Van shut. Token returned to its hook. Bell quiet. Lamp inside keeps its pull scale pointer. Rests at 0. Office key is content. If sleep has arrived, we will tell you at the next line break. Where we are, the day will keep you, if you keep it lightly. Mid-morning brings parcels in from the road. A sack of flour nearer to bread than grain is to bundles of cloth. A wooden crate of lamp chimneys and a folded pram in need of a train more than a street. We set each on the parcel scale, move the rider, write the number and the destination. We tie labels, all with the same knot that opens with a thumb when the far porter is late and tired. A man from the quarry stands in the doorway and asks if the mixed freight will take stone. We tell him yes, as the slate already has. He nods as if relieved of an argument he did not want. We inspect the points for the siding, leather painted the color that remembers its job. We throw it to test the way and throw it back. We clear a bird's nest from the toe of the switch. The nest moves to a small ledge under the roof beam. Birds need schedules too, but not ours. The ground frame padlock returns to its shackle. The release key returns to its ring. Keys live where nails say they live. Nails sing that one note all day. This is the anchor line. Ground frame lever at its notch lamp shadow. On the eaves parcel scale chalked and wiped office key on nail. If your eyes close for a breath, you missed nothing. The lever stayed where it should. A boy brings a letter pouch from the post. We open it with a small brass key, a different family of keys, different hooks. We tip it and let the letters breathe on the desk. We stamp a date circle neat as a coin on each and tie a string around those for the down train. Wax goes on a cord once the press meets it with a kiss. The stamp bears, like so many rooms in our country, a key and a pair of scales, less for decoration than for a way to say finished. When noon lies flat on the platform, the mixed freight arrives with a canvas van and open wagons. We uncouple with a bar that learned its width long ago. The guard nods at the ledger, we nod back. To men steer a pallet down the parcel scale would blush at this load. We leave it to the wagon weighbridge at the big town. We chalk the crate we receive, settle the cloth bundles on a barrow, and breathe out when the guard's whistle reminds the engine that all things prefer moving to idling, is they have a destination. This is the one soft image we keep. Heat shimmer above the rails makes a faint line in the air like a thread pulled across a shirt. Then lost them we return to chalk, tags, and the short sentences of hands. Afternoon is for cleaning and for numbers. We lift the parcel scale pans and brush them with a cloth that never saw oil. We wipe the ticket window frame where fingers painted with invisible salt. We turn the telegraph battery screw a finger's worth and listen for the sounder's timbre to settle. We write 3 lines in the book: milk in, chimneys out, token to the east used twice. The book prefers verbs that do not pretend to be large. A girl with a hat box asks when the night train leaves. We point to the chalk slate, 20 to 10, and underline it with a line that wants to be seen but not be proud. She holds the hat box as if it contained a creature that required room more than breath. We set it on the counter to sell a ticket and watch her face remember. She's allowed to let go while numbers talk. This is the anchor. Ticket, counter, slate lamp not yet needed, but willing scale under its cloth office key on nail. If sleep sits just beyond your shoulder, keep it warm, the board will not change in a loud way. Evening returns the lamps to duty. We raise each glass, trim and lower. We fill the platform clock with 2 turns of the winding key. The pendulum resumes its thoughtful swing. On the line, the air learns to remember echoes. A stray dog steps away from the rails without being told. We hang the night token at the window and check that the block needle nods to line clear for the first part of the dark world. We make tea in a metal cup under a spirit lamp in the back room. The cup sits on a folded map of the district roads. Because the table slants a hair, the map does not mind being useful. We split a heel of bread, set a slice of cheese, and think of nothing heavier than whether the last letter pouch needed an extra knot. It did not. The knot we use has never learned to lie. This is the anchor line. Back room, cup, map lamp, small telegraph ticking like a man who prefers fax scale at 0 key on nail. If sleep arrives here, it is welcome. The rails know how to carry you from one minute to the next without asking your name. Night passenger arrives with the low conversation of wheels that do not argue with iron. The guard's lamp shows red, then green. We raise the flag, lower the flag. A family steps down, steps up. A trunk walks on a trolley to a van with its door like a mouth that learned to be gentle. A soldier stands with his bag on one shoulder, looking at the clock not for time, But because clocks make sense and sometimes nights do not, we give him a nod, and nothing else. The station is a place for nods. We pass the token through the cab window, the driver's glove brushing our fingers, not as a gesture, as a consequence of physics. He sets it in its holder with a click that is better than an oath. The engine breathes in. The train leaves like a sentence that knows its verb. The platform boards breathe out. We look down the line with the lantern hooded, so as not to tell the field its business. Lamps along the eaves go on being useful. This is the anchor. Flag furled, token rack empty, until the wire says the stretch is ours again. Lamp behind glass, scale asleep. Key where it should be. If you have slept and woken within these lines, you missed nothing. The numbers have not changed their faces. We close the ticket drawer, count the bundles by touching them with the back of a finger, so they do not try to leave on the draft. We lock the telegraph cover. We sign the book to names, 1 page, small letters. We lower the lamp wick to a bead that could be a thought that forgot to be loud. The platform reclaims a little silence from the hour. The sky keeps its work. For our single image at the end, the parcel scale pointer, thin as a breath, rests exactly at the notch where the world asks nothing more from it. Then we return to the door. This is the anchor line. Lamp a blue bead. Scales at 0. Office key on nail. If sleep arrives now, let it. Morning will find the timetable legible. The tokens accounted for, the wicks trimmed, and the 3 quiet things where a hand expects them. The 6th part. Valencia. Late 18th into early 19th century. Before the day leans warm, a narrow street keeps the night like cool paper. We lift the workshop bar, turn the door key a quarter in a lock that knows one honest stop, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the winding bench so the reels and spindles sit in a steady oval of light. A jar with clean water waits beside a small beam scale. Skeins of pale silk hang from a peg. They twist, remembering a river you can hear if you listen through the thread. This is the anchor line. We are in a silk room at dawn, lamp lit, beam scale at 0, door key back on its nail. If your breath has slowed, keep it. Thread prefers a quiet witness. Cocoons sleep in a wicker tray, sorted by color and size. A shallow copper pan reeling basin warms on a charcoal pot to a heat that persuades gum saracen, the natural silk glue, to loosen its hold. We stir the surface once with a small whisk of twigs. Loose filaments find one another and lift together like hair learning a comb. A reeler, sleeves rolled, waits fingertips in the jar and gathers 6 or 8 filaments to one slender thread. She sets it on the reel, a light wooden wheel with crossbars that keeps distance even. The reel turns, the thread walks onto it, shines, and tells no lies about strength. This is the reel bench. The lamp's circle sits just at the edge of water, so the steam remembers to be modest. A drip line guides excess to a cup, not the floor. We tie the end with a soft knot that a thumbnail can persuade. A boy turns the reel with a rhythm the room already knows. A woman tests with a breath. The thread hums one note when plucked, neither high with pride nor low with complaint. This is the anchor, reel, basin, jar, lamp and scale, where a hand expects them. Key on nail. If your eyes blink long, the reel will keep its count. We move to the throwing frame, the machine that twists reeled silk into organzini for warp and tram for weft. Spindles wait on a creel like slender soldiers, each with its own path through guides and across a traveller. We weigh a little skein on the beam scale before it meets twist. Wait now, wait later. The rider walks and nails breadth the pointer bows and returns. Numbers keep thread from being a rumour. We set the flyer running. Silk takes twist the way a river takes light, slowly enough to promise, quickly enough to matter. A hand tests by untwisting a half turn. The return tells the truth. Warp needs more, weft less. We write a short line in the book and let the frame speak its small, even nonsense. This is the anchor line. Creel and flyers, lamps, oval scales, compointer. If sleep leans in, keep it. Twist does not trip when watched or not watched. At the dye bench, dye stuffs rest in jars. Cochineal crushed insects that give a red like pomegranate rind. Weld for yellow, madder for red brown, a little indigo for a blue, that will step back when asked. Alum, a mordant that helps color hold, lives in a paper labeled tin. We weigh with leaf weight slivers of brass for grams onto a dish. 1% on the weight of fiber is the whisper we obey. Silk accepts much with grace, but looks best when nobody shouted. We dissolve alum first, cochineal later, strain through cloth that only ever strains color. The skeins soak, lift, and fall back, slow as sleep. We do not squeeze, we press. This is the anchor. Die dish on the beam scale, lamp steady, key on nail. If your head nods, the water will keep its figure. We rinse in a trough with clear water, lay skeins on rods, and let air find them without telling the day. A shuttle of breeze from the alley shakes them once the silk answers, like a bell that prefers to be a suggestion. When near dry, we stretch each skein over a swift and wind onto paper tube spools. The swift turns without correcting us. The spools sit in a drawer lined in felt. Their faces keep the little memory of a river and a handful of stones. This is the warping reel. A frame taller than a man holds pegs in a circle. Thread walks from creel to reel, round and round, counting ends with a wire that ticks at each pass. A guide comb, a rattle simple teeth in a bar keeps ends in their lanes. We mark crosses, least crosses, with two thin sticks to preserve the order when threads leave the reel for the beam. Silk behaves when you give it a memory. The cross is a memory you can hold. We tie in choke ties light, not cruel, so the bundle will not talk itself into a knot. This is the anchor line. Warping reel, cross sticks, rattle lamp, scale, key. If sleep visits, silk waits. It is accustomed to pauses. The loom waits in the next room. A draw loom with a ground harness for plain weave, and a figure harness that reads a pattern like a quiet song. Heddles cord loops with eyes hang in ranks. A reader comb of flat wires sits in the beater. The warp beam holds last week's ends. Today we tie on, old to new, one by one. Surgeons knots that open if you insist, hold if you do not. The cross sits in least rods at the fell. The moving edge of cloth and tells hands which thread is which. We slay the reed to ends per dent here, 3 there, where the pattern wants a line to think of itself as hard or soft. This is the anchor. Tie on bench, least rods, reed lamp in its pull beam. Scale back at the die table, key unmoved. If your eyes close, the knots will not sulk. We thread heddles for the ground over, through, over, always the same habit, so the brain can rest and the hand can work. For the figure, a draw boy climbs to the draw frame and sets cords in a row. Later, he will lift bundles by pattern strips, a chain of laths, or a book of cards, if the jacquard head has arrived in this street. Either way, the idea is the same, a small choice repeated calmly. We hang the temple at the cloth edge to keep width honest. The shuttle, with a silk pern, sits on the sill, nose to one side as if listening. This is the one soft image we keep. The warp under lamp looks like a river that forgot to move. All lines, no ripples. Then we return to heddles, knots, and the small plain talk of wood. We begin. The ground harness rises, treadles press and release with a sound like to soft knock. Shed opens, shuttle passes, beater sets. The draw boy lifts a bundle for a small sprig, a pomegranate seed in silk, a leaf that remembers citrus without boasting. The figure stands because chords agreed. The ground holds because everything under it kept rhythm. We count picks, the weft shots by a small dial on the side beam. A hand taps it at each edge and forgets the motion while remembering its number. This is the anchor line. Beater, shuttle, draw frame lamp near the fell, scale near the die bench, key at the nail. If sleep has slipped into your lap, stay silk steps without waking the house. We check fell line with a rule. The cloth should grow level like a tide. We test the salvager, thumbnail across and hear nothing catch. We add a whisper of sighs, starch water with a brush if ends begin to hair. The brush moves in one direction, not back and forth. A back and forth brush teaches confusion faster than clear speech teaches sense. The ends quiet under a hand that has done this before. At midday, we oil the pivots, just enough oil, not an opinion, and wipe the reed with a cloth that has never met dye. The draw cords get a glance, each knot knows its lath. A card head, if the jacquard sits above, clicks light as a well-taught piano The needles read holes, and the hooks rise. The harness cords lift their chosen threads, without gossip. If no jacquard, the drawboy's fingers are the needles. He lifts cords, by a pattern book propped in a clip. Either way, the figure does not shout. This is the anchor, oil can, cloth, card book or pattern laths, lamp at half, scale at rest, key shore. If your head nods, the loom will keep your place with a line of weft you will not mind missing. A merchant arrives in the doorway and does not step onto the weaving floor until we nod. He carries a packet with a pattern request, a stripe for coat lining, a sprig for shawl border, weight and width named plainly. We bring him to the sample drawer little books of woven alleys and, he points. We weigh a skein for his colour on the beam scale and write a number in his presence. Numbers are a kind way to put two minds in one place. He leaves a coin on felt and a silence that feels like agreement. We prefer that to speeches. This is the one line for sleep. If sleep arrives, let it. Threads will cross whether eyes attend or rest. Afternoon takes the loom with a steady hand. We change perns. A pern should be wound even, not fat on the ends. The shuttle tells the truth about poor winding by slapping without asking permission. Ours does not slap, it murmurs. We lay the next pern in and close the side cap. The weft colour shifts by half a tone. We note it in the margin of the book and in the selvage with a short signature thread that only our own shop cares to see. At the winding bench, a girl counts turns by fingers, not by mouth. Every fifth turn a knuckle taps the swift to teach a pause. Her pile of spools grows like a quiet city. She weighs a set on the beam scale, because the weaver's hour will be easier if the spools resemble one another. The rider's path becomes her story. She does not tell it, but the scale does. This is the anchor line, winding bench, beam scale, lamp loom steady key where it belongs. If the day has gone dim behind your eyes, keep it dim. Silk calls for dim. Toward evening we finish a length and roll the cloth beam. We chalk the head pattern, ends, picks, date and slip a paper band under the first wrap, so the roll will keep its first breath. We cut with a long blade and tie off ends with square knots that behave. The cloth lies on a frame with soft edges. A hand rubs it with the back of the fingers to find snacks. The hand finds none. We open the window a half to let the room trade air without teaching drafts to meddle. We pack a length for the dyer if it is to be piece dyed, or leave it to the finisher if it should be calendared pressed between rollers to a polite shine. The finisher's book lives in another shop. We write his name and his line in ours. 2 shops, 1 cloth. The city has kept this habit longer than either of us has kept our current shoes. This is the anchor, cloth beam, chalk, lamp the beam scale under its cloth, the key facing left. If sleep stands ready, let it. Today asked only 4 small decisions we made gently. We tidy. Heddles gathered where they will not tangle. Least sticks back on their nails. Temple hung on a hook with its teeth wrapped. Shuttle laid on its side, never on its nose. The die bench jars. Close the dishes, rinse to clear. The hydrometer cylinder tilts to dry. Leaf weights return to felt. The book closes with a straight edge slipped inside. We sweep with a brush that prefers corners and leave the pile for the morning to teach the beam where to sit. At the door we test the bar. The locksbow takes the key, turns its quarter, stops where it should. The lamp lowers to a blue bead. The warp breathes like a cat that knows when to be seen and when to be a line across the room. The street outside makes a soft vowel and then forgets us. This is the anchor line, lamp, scales, key seen and counted. If sleep arrives now, let it. Morning will find reels dry, spools in their drawer, warp crosses honest, the figure harness patient, and the 3 quiet things where a hand expects them. The 7th part. Seville riverfront, mid-19th century. The Guadalquivir holds a slow breath under the arches, brown, green and sure. We lift the counting house bar, turn the key door key a quarter in a lock that has liked one clean stop for longer than any of us, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the tall desk so the ledger page keeps a calm oval of light. Outside, bollards wait with iron patience inside. A beam scale stands near the doorway, pans bright from cloth and habit. This is the anchor line, We are at the river warehouse at Don Lamplight. Beam scale at 0. Key door key back on its nail. If your breathing has lengthened, keep it. The tide will keep its appointment without us raising our voice. The yard wakes in small acts. A broom learns the boards, pushing husk and dust to a corner where a shovel will be kind later. A boy coils a hawser 3 lays to the rope, tar sweet and clean, and lays it on a peg with the tail tucked, so no boot will teach it to wander. The hoist beam above the door oak, iron shard at the nose, takes its block and tackle from a hook and hangs it so its sheaves can remember how to be round. The hook sits quiet, mouth closed, no appetite yet. We chalk the tide on the board. Morning rise to the 9th mark, fall by mid-afternoon to surprise, only the river rereading its lines. A folded pamphlet of tide tables lies under a stone weight. The stone learned its job from a pocket before it retired. We turn the page to today and lay the stone back. Paper lifts, then agrees. This is the anchor, chalkboard, stone weight, beam scale. Lamp and key are where a hand expects them. If sleep leans in, keep it. The chalk will hold the hour. A lighter noses along the kilo barge, square in the shoulders and eases under the hoist beam. The boatman brings her with a hand on the sweep and a mind full of habits that made it through last winter. The line comes up to the ring with a soft knock. We drop the hook to a sling and settle it around a bale. The bale knows its corners. Canvas holds by a stitch every thumb could trust. To hands on the full rope pull, the tackle speaks in 3 small syllables, and the bale remembers air again. A man at the window eases the beam inward. The bale swings over the threshold and rests on a trolley with wood wheels that learned the grain of this floor before we were born. This is the key scale, a stout platform, a pillar with a beam and rider. We set the bale on, walk the rider, read the pointer. Numbers like these are the simple ones, hundreds in even tens. The clerk calls the weight. The ledger breathes and writes date, vessel, mark on bale, weight, duty class. A stamp waits in felt customs arm, city mark, and gives a clean circle to the docket. Wax is not for everything on this river. Most trust ink and the men who write it. We roll the bale to its corner and leave the aisle clear. A rule tacked to a beam tells us the aisle must be kept, not a law that threatens, a line that prevents falling into disagreement. A rack on the wall holds keys, gate, winch, counting house, strong room bow left, teeth right. The long key keys popped from any mornings and fewer nights. It hangs where a hand finds it without eyes. This is the anchor line. Key scale, ledger, key ring. Lamp steady, the beam scales, pointer resting kindly. If your eyes close for a count, the hook will not learn hunger. A crate of Talavera plates blue, sleeping under straw, comes up next. We lower the hook, set a belly band sling so the weight finds center, and lift with the least possible conversation. The crate moves to the scale. The pointer thinks, then settles. We write, we label, we set it down onto laths, so air can teach the boards not to take a print. A boy pencils an arrow and the word up onto faces, not because the crate cannot speak, but because tired men often stop listening before the crate finishes its sentence. The tide reaches its mark and rubs the stone, if smoothing a thought. A carter brings a cart with a single brake shoe polished by years of small descents. He backs to the door, wool chopped with a wedge that knows one angle. We load 2 bales, 1 crate. The carter watches with a face that argues with nobody. He signs the slate with his first name and a cross that could be any letter. The cross sits on the same line where the weight sits. Enough. This is the anchor, wedge, slate, scale, lamp on its desk, key on its nail. If sleep rests in your collarbone, it is permissible. The wedge will not forget. We inspect the hoist rope. 3 strands, tarred, spliced with the same to hands last spring. We pass a rag up and down to feel for rough talk. None. The throat of the block gets a smear of tallow, does not ask for praise. The beam pin gets a drop of oil that never met dust. The oil can lives in a pocket nailed high, where it can remember to be upright. In the counting house, a clock in a pine case marks quarter hours with a wooden voice. We wind it 2 turns. The bell settles and asks for nothing more. A second ledger shows the lighter's tally by load. kept so the boatman and the clerk can admire how similar their numbers look at day's end. Admiration keeps courts empty and hands clean. This is the one soft image we keep for the hour. The river under the eaves flexes once, and the pattern on its back looks like cordage laid and relayed by patient fingers. Then we go back to iron, oak, and numbers that do not mind being small. Mid-morning brings sacks of almonds from a priver-woven skin, stitches knotted in a way that opens by pin, not by teeth. We weigh a lot, not a sack, because the duty reads lots, not bags. We mark a chalk line along the sack's shoulder where the mouth will find its convenience later. We write the number and draw a short diagonal in red on the slate. Paid. The sack rests against its fellows, and the floor gains weight the way a story gains sentences steadily, without insult. A customs man steps under the beam. Hat low, ledger small, eyes not small. He checks stamps against entries, counts links, and talks to the clerk in a voice like a low tide. He presses his seal on 3 papers. The seal shows, as many seals do, a key and a pair of scales. We do not call the image clever, we call it useful. He leaves. The room thanks him by not changing. This is the anchor line. Customs seal cool on wax. Ledger open to the day. Key exactly where we left it. If sleep visits, keep it, the seal will harden without fans. We send a crate down to the lighter. A pulley sings a single note. Rope pays. Hook opens. Crate breathes the key's shade and rests in the boat's ribs like a parcel that found its seat. The boatman slides a baton under the crate so bilge water will not suggest a new shape. He ties a bowline in one motion we admire and never write down. He nods at the tide. The tide nods at him. A man from the cooperage across the lane rolls a cask into the doorway. Sherry, pip size, sweet and frank. He wants it set in the cool end of the room for a ship tomorrow. We weigh it tear known, net predictable, and write the cipher as if writing a name. We chalk an arrow and the word vents at the bunghole, so the cask can sigh in its corner without learning a new problem. The man taps a hoop with a driver iron, answers in the note we like. Held. This is the anchor. Hoop note, chalk arrow, beam balance, lamp in its oval key on nail. If your eyes close, the cask will not go exploring. At noon we break bread in the shade. Ledger shut with a string around it. Lamp turned down to a thought. The key breathes warm. A sparrow sets a rule across the door beam for a heartbeat and leaves it for another sparrow. The rope on the hook keeps its coil as if it had practiced, which it has. We eat an orange that tastes like all the groves we have not seen and will not argue with that. Back to the full rope and the hook. A bale with a faint salt-stained whispers that it met the sea before it met us. We spread a cloth where it will sit. A knife opens the seam, not the belly. Hands find the mark sheet. Cotton, long staple. Even twist a hand says as much as the paper and prefers fewer words. We sample with a pull, write the sample in the book, and set aside a wisp in an envelope in case a shipper asks the same question in a different room. The envelope waits in a box that has won arguments with mice for a decade. This is the anchor line. Sample box, envelope, knife, lamp restored to working, light scale pointer, honest key and ambitious. If sleep leans, keep it, cotton will not turn to smoke for want of observers. Afternoon brings heat to the keystones. We keep the door wide and the awning low. A gust off the water lifts the edge and lays it down. The hoist beam takes to crates of lamp chimneys, 5 sacks of flour, 3 bales of cotton, a bundle of iron bars that do not care for the scale, and go to the weighbridge in the outer yard. The weighbridge pointer swings, nearly forgets to settle, then makes peace with its mark. A boy writes the weight on a card nailed to the post. He writes slow because slow is legible. In the counting house, the second ledger collects small money. Coins sit on felt in 3 trays, paper waits under the stone. A drawer holds a bag of seals and a string-wrapped packet of stamps for bills of lading. The stamp press has a face that learned to be round from the moon. It presses with a 1-syllable sound. If any word belongs to that sound, it is enough. This is the one image we keep this hour. The hook, idle for a breath, shows a crescent of lamplight along its lip like a clean fingernail. Then we return to slings and notes. Toward evening, the river drops a hand's breadth. The lighter shifts and tells the key about it in a sound that would bother a man who enjoys drama. We are not that man. We slack the breast line a finger and leave the stern to learn a smaller curve. A child on the steps plays with a reed and a circle of water that grows, meets, forgets. He's not our child. He's our neighbor for a minute. He learns the tide and will remember the lessons when none of our names matter. Inside, we tally the day, bales in, sacks out, crates cross the threshold twice in opposite sentences. The ledger carries lines and no judgments. We set the beam scale pans on cloth and brush them with a brush that never met oil. We draw the rope through our hands once more. We untie the slings and hang them from pegs by the window, where air, who will teach them tomorrow, is not wet. This is the anchor line. Beam scale brushed, rope hung, key on nail. Lamp lowered a notch, breath easy. If sleep has arrived, let it. The key will not change politics while you rest. We count the keys. Gate, key door, counting house, strong room. We touch each and hang each bow to the left, teat to the right. A drawing on a card, 4 little silhouettes lives behind the ring for the morning, when eyes will be slow. A stamp sits on felt. We lay a wafer and press once to seal a packet of dockets. The wafer takes the face calls. We do not admire it more than a second. The lighter eases off. The boatman raises a hand. We raise ours. He swings the sweep and lets the river be stronger than his will. A cart clatters away with a barrel singing to its staves. The broom that learned the floor leans its bristles up. The shovel sits where a boot will not teach it to fall. The chalkboard keeps the tide marks for tomorrow by being wiped of today's. Clean is a kind memory, not amnesia. This is the one soft line we allow ourselves at the end. Dusk on the river is like oil on water. In a shallow jar, one skin over another. Quiet and complete, then we return to the desk. We close the ledger with the string. Lay the stone weight. Cover the beam scale with its cloth. Turn the lamp wick to a bead, the size of a seed. We pull the door to. The bar finds its brackets with a small wooden pinion. The long key turns a quarter and no more. The nail receives it again, if nails were friends and not iron. If sleep arrives, let it. The tide will keep its schedule, ropes will keep their coil. The ledger will hold its lines and morning will find the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them. The 8th part. Bay of CDs, mid-19th century. Before the sun decides, the marsh smells of clean brine and fennel. We lift the shed bar, turn the Salina gate key a quarter in a square iron mouth that grew into this post, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the sill, so the rakes and boots keep a quiet oval of light. Outside, pans lie level as held breath inside. A beam scale waits with its rider asleep at 0, and a brush leans bristles up to remember what dry means. This is the anchor line. We are at the salt flats at Lamplight. Beam scale at 0, long gate key on its nail. If your breathing is slowed, keep it the tide and the wind already know their pages. We walk to the estero, the feeder canal that takes tide from the bay. Sluice boards seat in their grooves, oak against stone, tar in the seams. The tide has come high, the mark on the piling shows 9th finger above yesterday's line. We set the square of the gate key on the iron spindle and give it a careful quarter. The paddle behind the gate slides. Water begins as a bead and becomes a thread, then a shoulder, the canal's surface admitting motion without calling attention to it. We count to 30 while the head equalizes. Then another slow turn, the current finds its voice and stops, shy of hurry. This is the anchor, gate key in the hand, lamp behind us, beam scale at rest. If sleep leans in, let it, the water will reach the Colentador's warming ponds without being cheered. Brine steps by steps, from the estero to the Colentador's. Shallow sheets where sun and wind do the first half of work, from there to the concentradors darker, smaller where the measure rises, then to the crystallizars, the bright pans where crystals find edges. We drag a wooden level across a pond floor to learn how last week dried. Moppets of clamarisma mud mixed and beaten fill small loaves, a flat tamper teaches them to belong. The plank shivers once and sits. A pan that forgot level learns it again. At the test bench a glass cylinder holds brine, a hydrometer-borne scale. Easy to read when the eye is not proud, floats and thinks. We wait for the meniscus to stop pretending it can fool us. The stem reads a number a hand could have guessed within a finger's width by taste alone. Morning brine in the colentador sits where it should in the concentrador. It remembers yesterday correctly in the crystal pond. It is nearer to done than to story. We write figures in the margin, not in the center of the page, because the page is already calm. This is the anchor line. Cylinder, stem, pencil lamp small on the sill, key turned back on its nail. If your eyes close for 10 breaths, the numbers keep brine, does not change out of politeness. Rakes and escobas, the broad salt brooms lean in pairs. We oil the rake farrel, not much, so wood will not drink the day. Boots hang from pegs by their heels. We choose the ones the ankles remember. A boy ladles fresh brine into a shallow wooden boat, le barquilla to prime upon floor, whose cracks wanted to tell us winter stories. The boat skims, the surface shines, the cracks lose their voice. A woman tests with a palm, the pond answers in temperature more than speech. We step the levees. Each shoulder between pans is tamped and edged with a shovel that has learned to be a rule. A small spill at a corner gets a wedge of clay and a single heel to seat it. We mark where the windmill, the little pump with cloth vanes, will work this afternoon, moving brine from a canal whose pride grew to large to a pond that could use a friend. The mill is a patient child. It will do its part for as long as someone remembers to set its tail into the breeze. This is the anchor, shoulder, shovel, milltail, lamp in its oval scale pointer, quiet key at home. If sleep arrives, let it, wind will do sums without you. Mid-morning the salicornia on the bank glasswort shows. Its red tips, a man snaps a handful for the pocket and crushes it between fingers, as if to recall the old days when ash meant soda for glass. Today it means colour and a snack. He laughs, quiet, at memory that prefers hands to lectures. We open a second gate with the same quarter turn and let new water walk the back channels where yesterday's sun lived. The first flats glitter. At the crystallizars the day draws thin lines along the brine's face where crystals begin to insist. We test the skin with the rake edge, breaking it without spite, so the layer grows even, not proud at one corner and stingy at another. We pull the glaze toward us in long, slow lanes. Under the rake, brine hisses like fine sand. The hiss is a better meter than the clock. This is the anchor line, rake, lane. His lamp to far now, to matter scale at 0 key on nail. If drowsiness sets its tent behind your eyes, let it stay. The rake remembers the width, and the lane keeps it straight. We rest the rake on a peg and lift a shallow basket with a flat mouth harvesting basket, so the first crystals can learn to be a heap. Only at the border of the pan, we do not walk the middle yet. The basket drinks crystals and sheds brine back into the sheet. The heap on the levee grows like a quiet hill, no all bother. A boy sprinkles fresh brine along the base to plaster the hill into a modest wall. He smooths the face with the flat of the rake. The wall looks like it was made by water that learned to stay. At the shed we weigh a handful. The beam scale bows and returns. Wet salt weighs more later. Sun and wind will write their deductions, and we will write ours. A ledger on the bench holds 3 columns, pon. Weight wet, weight dry. A margin keeps little truce. North wind softer than it promised. A green heron stood on the post and considered leaving. Nobody argued, nothing fell. This is the anchor, ledger, beam, brush. Lamp circle holds the page, honest key safe. If your head dips, it does not erase ink. We eat bread and olives in the shade of the shed, while the tide turns its back on us to mind men up river. A jar with a wet cloth over its mouth keeps water from learning dust. A spoon of salt our own. Last week's dry touches, tomato and oil on bread. The taste has no metaphors. It is brine that remembered how to finish a sentence. Back to work. The windmill's tail points, the cloth vanes find their edge. The pump lifts a cough of water that becomes a thread, that becomes an agreement between 2 levels. At the estero, we close a gate, a finger's turn, and open another, a finger's turn, because ponds are like people who arrive at a door together and have to agree whose shoulder goes first. Agreement costs less when the turns are small. This is the one soft image we keep. On the crystal pan, the first true plate of salt grows like frost that forgot to be cold. Then we return to rakes, wedges, and figures that sit still. Afternoon makes the white brighter than good manners. We add hats and lower heads and keep our lanes with our eyes on the tall, not the horizon. The escoba moves the loose from wall to basket, from basket to the larger mound near the shed where sun and wind dress the crystals down to storage weight. We do not hurry the mound, it becomes cake if we do. A rake-leaned rhomb will scar the surface, we put rakes right. A carter arrives with a flat cart and a mule that knows where the shade chooses to stand. The cart's axle speaks in one note. We set a plank from levee to cart and build a low path of boards, so boots will remember dry. Baskets rise, and return the cart learns its weight by degrees. At the shed, the platform beam scale takes the next part of the day. Empty cart, chalk mark full cart, chalk line longer difference written on a tag that ties to the cart rail with twine that opens to a thumb's patience. This is the anchor line, cart plank, platform scale, chalk tag lamp, a small idea inside key on its nail. If sleep drifts closer, keep it, the plank will hold. We rake the pan to clean. A scraper, a straight board with iron shoes pulls a last thin sheet of brine to the drain slot where a wooden gate learns to be a mouth. The gate lowers and shuts with a sound like to hand's greeting. A brush smooths the floor to an even dull. And we write on the post the hour we expect the first shine tomorrow. Posts have better memories than mouths when sun sits behind them. At the workshop bench, we patch a rake head whose tenon had begun to forget its duty. The mortise gets a thin shim of olive wood, a smear of glue, and the press under to stones that have never asked to be anything else. A cord ties the bundle so fingers will not test what the glue would like to finish in peace. We oil rake handles with a rag that has learned the taste of linseed and silence. This is the anchor, bench, stones, cord lamp, steady beam scale at 0 key, still faithful to the nail. If your eyes close for a handful of breaths, the glue becomes truer, not weaker. Wind shifts, west to south. We turn the milltail with a push that knows when to stop. The cloth veins answer without poetry. In the concentrador, the hydrometer reads higher than morning. We lift a little brine to the crystal pan with a scoop and let it slide down the face we smooth with the rake. A woman touches it with the back of her finger and smiles in the small way that keeps houses clean and days long. A cooper walks in from the road with a low cask for storage low, so a short ladder can be the right size. He sets it onto laths near the wall. We chalk dry only and draw a small sun, so nobody chooses to put wet where dry intends to live. He tests the hoop with a driver iron answers, as if to say, held in the language of rings. He leaves a receipt for 3 casks tomorrow, and takes away to baskets for a sister, who likes brine 4 olives, more than 4 talk. This is the anchor line, chalk sun, hoop note, beam scale in the corner like a neighbor lamp, unchanged key unchanged. If sleep stands at the door and asks nothing, give it a chair. We turn to the cassette, the little salt house, where finished salt lives out of sun. Its floor rests on bricks, laid on edge to keep damp from teaching upward lessons. We shovel dry salt from the mound to the house, not high, not low, just steady arcs that land and level. A boy runs the border wooden sled under the heap and pulls with a rope that remembers his weight. The board glides, the heap obeys, the shovel returns to the same small hole in the crust where it began. Work like this holds a mind, the way a soft song holds a room. At the door a stamp waits, a wafer of red wax on the docket and a press that carries, as so many rooms in this country prefer, a key and a pair of scales. The press meets the wafer with a kiss. The kiss makes the line look finished more than important. We set the docket in a tin, where breezes learn to pass by without taking it for a walk. This is the one soft image we allow. Late light across the white mound makes it look like cloth thrown over a sleeping giant. Then we return to shovels, boards, and the shy verses of brine. Evening steps down the levees. We close the estero gates by fingers, not fists, because a gate that learns gentleness honors it back tomorrow. We lift the mill cloth from its veins and tie it with knots that have names we do not repeat, not because they are secret, because they are unambitious. Rakes hang on pegs with mouths down so rain if it chooses will learn exit, not home. This is the anchor line. Gates shut, rakes hung, beam scale covered with its cloth. Lamp turned smaller, key on its nail. If sleep arrives, let it. The pans will keep their level, the wind will keep its lane, the tide will fold its page. We sweep the shed floor with a brush that prefers edges and corners. A pile of salt, duster fine for sale. To honest for waste goes into a pail for the stable, where ice never matters and damp sometimes does. The hydrometer cylinder tilts on a block, to dry its stem lies beside it like a reed that forgot its marsh. We wash the cylinder once and leave it. Water runs down to a clean stop. A fisherman from the creek steps in with a small parcel of anchovies and asks, not with words, if we have an ounce of yesterday's brine to bless them. We dip him a jar and weigh the parcel on the beam scale, just to keep the book clean. He leaves a coin on felt and the smell of nets that will be tomorrow's story if anyone asks for it, which they likely will not. This is the anchor, jar, coin. Beam lamps circle round as a plate key where it belongs. If your eyes grow heavy, rest. Nothing here requires an argument. We write the day's last figures, pans turned, plates taken, carts weighed, wind, gates, small notes about birds and boys, and a shovel repaired. We draw a small line under the last number and a dot in the margin. Dots and lines become sleep. At the door we raise a hand to the marsh, returns the gesture with a breath. The shed bar lifts to its brackets. The long key turns a quarter, and no more in a mouth, but prefers this courtesy. Inside, the lamp lowers to a bead, and then to a thought smaller than a seed. The beam scale rests under its cloth. The gate key hangs bow to the left, teeth to the right. The habit of this wall and this country. If sleep arrives, let it. Salt will dry where you left it. Brine will hold the number you measured. Morning will find the rakes on their pegs, the hydrometer stem clear, the ledger crisp, and the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them. The ninth part. Toledo, mid-19th century. The alley keeps last night's call of Viv folded in paper. We lift the half-door bar, turn the shop key a quarter in a brass lock that prefers one honest stop, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the marble counter so the mortar, the spoons, and the paper scale tray sit inside a steady oval of light. On the wall, rows of Albarello's apothecary jars, blue on white hold simples and blends behind handwritten names that have outlived more than one hand. This is the anchor line. We are in a Spanish botica at Don Lamplit. Small beam scale at 0, shop key back on its nail. If your breath has slowed, let it measures and more to keep their pace without urging. We sweep the tiled floor with a brush that prefers corners, set the bell jar back over the fine balance, and crack the window to fingers to invite air and not dust. On the counter, the brass beam balance warms to the room. Its pointer hangs at true without drama. A drawer slides open to show leaf weight slivers of brass that shave a gram to a whisper nested by habit, not pride. We lay them out and lift the marble pill tile so its cork and greet work. The herb cupboard breathes like linen. Lavender keeps its drawer polite. Rosemary insists, and his forgiven bitter orange peel waits in curls as tidy as a promise. Beside them, the pharmacopoeia page's thumb to gloss sits under a stone weight. We turn to today's bookmark and see small lines for syrup, tincture, and a poultice a farmer likes because it sits where it should and asks no questions. We read numbers, not theories. This is the anchor, cupboard, book, balance lamp steady key on its nail bar left. Teeth write the habit of this wall. If sleep drifts close, keep it. The leaf weights will find the line. A knock. The midwife from the far side of the square. Her basket rests on the sill as she asks for syrup of lemon and a draught of poppy waterlight, for a cough that knows dusk better than dawn. We weigh lemon peel thin as paper on the beam. The rider walks a nail's breadth, the pointer bows and returns. Sugar finds the pan next. Water warms in a bain-marie peel, and a sliver of cinnamon sit in the pot until the air admits a clean line of scent. We strain through cloth kept only 4 sweets, not 4 roots. A drop on the spoon sheets, not threads, enough. Into a stoppered bottle it goes. The label takes a neat hand. The date, and the line of use, to spoonfuls with evening. This is the anchor line. Beam, spoon, label lamp in its oval fine balance asleep, but within reach key unmoved. If your eyes dim, the syrup will cool without sulking. We fold powders for the day. A mild stomach powder. A charcoal pastille for a fisherman who eats when the tide allows, not when hunger votes. We sift through a silk, tap the frame, and let the powder fall like a quiet hour. Each dose finds a paper folded to a square, then a twist papilillos that look like notes and weigh like answers. We mark them in a hand that would not wake anyone. The mortar granite, old as rain, receives seeds for a cordial. Anise, fennel, a grain of caraway, a breath of angelica root. The pestle walks the bowl it does not pound. Oil remembers to come out when the pestle reminds it. We add a thread of spirit and the shade of syrup. The glass funnel runs like a line that stops in the right place. The bottle takes a cork that knows its seat. A wafer of red wax seals the top. The press meets it with a kiss. The seal shows, as many here do, a key and a pair of scales, less a boast and a way to call a line finished. This is the anchor, mortar, pestle, seal lamp, combeam, scale pointer at 0 key, where a hand expects. If sleep leans in, the cork will still be tight when you blink awake. A farmer sets his hat on the hook and lays a paper on the counter from them Deco short prescription, tidy as winter. A poultice for a knee, linseed meal, mustard flour, vinegar to wake the mix, spread on muslin and set warm, not hot. We weigh linseed on the stout scale, mustard on the fine, and scribble 10 minutes, never burning. We grind dry first, mortar breathing low, and add liquid until the paste learns to be obedient. The cloth receives it like bread takes butter. A second cloth sits atop to keep the day off the skin. He nods, pays in coins that prefer felt to wood, and leaves with a line in our book that says what happened without having to tell it twice. This is the anchor line, stout scale, fine balance, book lamp, honest key, faithful. If your fingers relax, the paste will not grow impatient. Behind the counter, drawers spell mild thunder, Britannia, Kinner, Rhubarbo, all too old names, honest tools. We test the tincture strength by drop counting water in a glass, held against the window's weak light. Color says enough where words would say too much. A hydrometer waits in a cylinder on the shelf for spirits when they come today, asks only for a glance and a promise. A mother arrives with a boy who coughs the way windows do when weather decides to change. She wants honey with time. We warm the honey in a cup with a ribbon of water and a sprig crushed under thumb. The cup sits on a sand bath, so heat cannot surprise it. We write of spoon at night and add air by window, not wind, because advice that fits the house fits the body better than the other way around. She smiles like agreed arithmetic. This is the one soft image we keep. Lamplight on the blue of an albarello, like moon on a slow river. Then we return to spoons, papers, and small numbers. Mid-morning brings a seal from the tannery with hands that learned bark. He wants vinegar strong, and alum measured leather has its own city inside it. We weigh alum crystals clear as promises on the beam and tip them into a jar, scribbling a caution, dissolve slow. He traces the line with a finger and nods, not at us, at the quiet fact of it. A courier from the hospital drops a slip for spirits of wine and camphor. The fine balance wakes. We lift it from under the bell jar and level it with 2 screws that know modesty. Leaf waits, paper pan, a powder the color of neglect. The pointer quivers like a bird that cannot decide. If it knows the hand, then it rests. The bottle receives the spirit, the funnel remembers to breathe. Label, date, a line that says external. The clerk signs his name smaller than the label and larger than a secret. This is the anchor, fine balance, bell jar, label lamp, even key unchanged. If your head tilts, the balance will not take offense. We keep pilmas for a widow who counts hours by church bells. Powdered valerian, a touch of asafoetida smell with opinions, gum, Arabic water to bind. Then the pill top makes lines with a horn spatula, each line cut to even grains. A pill rounder under glass turns like a planet that forgot to brag. The balls find a bed of powdered licorice, as they will not remember to meet. We dry them, not to a rock, just to a memory. A small bottle receives them with cotton that will not court damp. This is the anchor line, tile, spatula, round a lamp scale key. If sleep arrives, let it. No pill will leave before it should. A monk from the convent slips through the half door with a list written in a hand that learned patience, rose water, vinegar of 4 thieves' old recipe, well-behaved oil of sweet almonds. We tie papilillos of dried rose and set the still for the afternooner copper alembic that never raises its voice. We weigh spices for the vinegar with a mind for the cupboard that donated them last month. The ledger remembers, the ledger forgives nothing and blames no one. Noon and the street trembles. We close the upper half of the door to keep hot air where it belongs. The lamp steps down and the window steps up. On the back bench, the still exhales. Rose and clean water condense in the worm, drip into a glass like a sentence that finds its period without help. We taste with a wetted lip, not poetry, utility. Into a blue stoppered bottle it goes. We measure by neck and by scale, both speak the same number. This is the anchor. Still, drip, bottle neck lamp smaller beam at 0 key steady. If your eyes close for a while, the drip will keep count. Afternoon calls for inventory. Jars down, lids off, glance, sniff, stir, decide. Chamomile still speaks, senna behaves to boldly and goes to the shelf marked firm opinions. We chalk the inside of each lid with the month and set it back if we did not. The chalk wears away in a season, our hand learns the new month without feeling important. A physician steps in with a notebook that carries short diagnoses like postcards to himself. He asks for a draft in 3 parts and 5 days of powders for a clerk who eats paper for lunch and pages for dinner. We portion magnesia without turning it into weather. Add our own quiet instruction water, not wine, and wrap the parcels in a string that opens with a thumb. He signs, takes, does not smile. He is not asked to. This is the anchor line. Notebook, string, beam lamp content key, where it has been. If drowsiness settles behind your eyes, we will keep the book open where you left it. Before closing, we clean the tools as if they will be inventions tomorrow. Mortar rinsed, dried, and turned on its side, so the rim stays honest. Pestle wiped and set where gravity is its friend. Spoons counted, their mouths up so water will not teach handles to drink. The beam scale pans brushed with a cloth that met no oil. The fine balance returns under its bell jar like a counselor behind a door that reads rest. We copy the day brief, polite into the back ledger. Syrups out, spirit in, leaves low into drawers. Seal press wax nearly gone. We add a dot and the line to say finished. Dots and lines in this room become sleep faster than speeches do. This is the one soft line we allow near the end. The window's last square of light on the marble looks like a clean page. No one will write on tonight. Then we return to keys and lamps. We lower the lamp wick to a bead no larger than a seed. Cover the beam scale with its cloth and check the lock by hand, not by ear. The shop key turns its quarter and no more. The bell at the door learns silence again. The albarellos keep their rows without practicing pride in the dark. If sleep arrives, let it. Powders will remain in their papers. Syrups will stay level in their glass. Morning will find the mortar dry. The leaf weights nested. The labels neat. And the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them. The 10th part. Castile to Andalusia Road, mid-19th century. The inn's yard smells of leather, and oat stars still hold their corner of the sky. We lift the half-door bar, turn the post office key a quarter in a brass lock that respects one clean stop, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the counter so the letter scale, the date stamper, and the sealing tray sit inside a steady oval of light. Outside, traces hang on pegs inside. The rate table Tarifa deports leans under a stone weight that keeps its page faithful. This is the anchor line. We are in a roadside estafeta, a dawn lamp lit. Letter scale at 0, post-room key back on its nail. If your breathing has slowed, keep it, the road will make its hour whether we press or wait. We open the small cupboard where mailbags sleep, canvas with brass knobs and iron hasps that do not pretend to be prettier than work. A ring of keys lives on a hook, bag, cupboard, gate, and coach house. We touch each and leave them where a hand expects them later. On the counter, the letter balance stands steel arm, knife edge, rider's thin as fingernails. We lay a folded sheet written, sealed with a wafer on the pan. The rider walks the pointer bows and returns. The rate book whispers an amount, the stamp's face answers with a round mark. We press in red. For parcels, the stout beam scale near the door waits like a patient ox. Numbers make a day gentle. This is the anchor, letter balance, beam scale. Stamp press lamp steady key on nail bar left. Teeth right the habit of this wall. If sleep leans closer, let it the pointer will hold your place. A postilion's horn gives just short notes on the road. He will want horses, and he will not shout about it. We chalk the blackboard by the door diligencia up for 30 down 2110 and underline each with a line that wants to be seen without pride. We step into the yard. Harness hangs in pairs, bits shine where wadding and oil met them last night. We check the coach lampstrum wick, clean glass, set the chimneys. Lamplight makes a soft room along brass, the color of bread just before it thinks of crust. Inside, we sort the pouch. Letters to the city, letters for villages not large enough to trouble a coach, small packets that smell of soap, rosemary, and far kitchens. We stamp with the data iron jaws, kissing ink once, paper once, and tie bundles with string that opens with a thumb, not a knife. Lead seals plomos wait in a tin, and the pliers that bite them carry, like so many rooms in this country, a key and a pair of scales on their little faces. We do not admire them too long. The habit of work prefers short looks. This is the anchor line. Data, string, lead seal lamp holding its oval letter scale at 0 key, where it should be. If your eyes blink long, the bundles will not unlearn their order. The diligencia noses into the yard with a soft cough of wheel and a breath of horses. The driver sets the brake, the guard drops to the ground with the mail horn under his arm and a leather valise under his left hand. We exchange nods, not speeches. The pouch key fits the bag, the hasp lifts, the mouth opens like a polite jar. We tip letters into the tray, face up, and begin to weigh and stamp and mark. A boy brings the parcel beam scale next to the counter. A crate of lamp chimneys sits on it. Rider to the mark, pointer to the line, paid in red diagonals on the label. A woman sets a small wooden box on the counter. Kayas de dulces, almond cakes for a sister, to Townsdown. We set the box on the beam scale. The rider walks a nail's breadth. The pointer thinks and finds the mark. We tie the label, press a small wax wafer with the post seal, and write the destination in a hand that would not wake anyone if the town slept under it. She leaves a coin on felt. The drawer eats it without clatter. This is the anchor, beam scale, wax press, felt, lamp and key repeat themselves, not as a charm, but as a route home. If sleep has set up camp behind your eyes, let it. The coach waits a minute longer for no one, but let us forgive drowsy listeners. In the stable, a groom lifts the buckle where the strap has begun to boast and reminds it of humility with a punch and a new hole. He tests the collar on a mare's shoulder, to fingers under the leather say the same as a sentence would, just kinder. A bucket clinks a scoop, whispers grain into a manger. The horses know oats better than politics. The coach lamps swallow flame, and the glass grows clear through a breath of smoke. Clean, as it should be. Back at the counter, we set the night bag for the next stop. The route card slips into the bag mouth. Under the hasp, the lead seal waits until the guard's hand is there to watch. The pliers bite, the lead shows its small face. We test the seal with a thumb. It does not argue. The bag closes. The guard signs the ledger, not name first, but time, because time and line weigh more than words here. He takes the bag and lays it in the Samara, the coach's mailbox, where iron brackets hold it like a thought that won't roll. This is the anchor line, ledger, seal, bag lamp quiet, letter scale resting key steady. If sleep arrives, we approve. Iron remembers more than tongues. We take the Registro de Caballeros, the horse book, and draw a short line for each animal's mole this morning, not for vanity, for ration and rest. A pencil check beside rear offside shoe tells the farrier what he will already have seen. A world works when the next hand need not ask the last hand what it did. A man in a brown coat presents a passport folded in half. The paper smells like the inside of a desk. He wants it stamped for the province. We lift the provincial seal, warm it over the lamp a whisper, and press it onto the wet ribbon of ink laid in the pad. The paper takes the round shadow of authority without fuss. We write a line name, hat colour, height in stories we do not tell. He slides the passport away with a hand that has learned to be quiet. This is the anchor, passport seal, lamp, pad letter scale honest key still on nail. If your head nods, no stamp will wander. The horn sounds. Once the groom steps back, the driver lifts the brake. The cupping of hooves starts as a question and becomes a road. The coach moves through the gate. We watch the lamps through the bars of the yard and then see only dust that forgets what it was told. We lower our own lamp to a working light and begin the small noon of a post house, counting, sweeping, and saving twine. There is always a quiet noon in these places even when clocks say otherwise. A farmer arrives with a coil of cheese wrapped in cloth. He wants paper and string to make a parcel to a cousin. We weigh the cheese naked so words do not lie, then wrap it in brown, tie a cross knot, and weigh again. The rider does not blush. We write the number and a short name. For the cousin who mends nets near Puerta. He knows the town. We know the road. The coach knows its own arithmetic. This is the one soft image we keep. Pressed wax cooling leaves a gloss like rain on a small red tile. Then we return to ink, twine, and numbers that do not perform. By midday, heat knuckles the yard once and leaves. We open the office window to fingers and set the letter scale under the draft, so dust will not speak into the pan. A boy cuts narrow slips from a sheet for sealing wafers, circles as neat as moons. He stacks them in a tin with starch paper between, and feels as if he made money, which he did not, and yet he did. A guardia steps in, hat square, boots honest. He asks for the road sheet, the list of the day's bags by stop. We show it. He touches each line with a finger that learned to count before it learned to judge. He nods at the lead seals, not because he doubts, because doubt is a tool that works better when exercised carefully. He leaves a thumb-sized chalk mark on the back of the bag for the next man who will not have time to pretend he is curious. This is the anchor line, road sheet, chalk, seal lamp steady letter scale, under its cloth, for a minute key as it was. If sleep stands at your shoulder, let it be. The chalk does not need a chaperone. Afternoon brings a courier on a mule with a leather case slung below. He carries Pligo's official packets wrapped in blue paper with broad wax. We weigh them for record, not for course. The record makes memory simpler for those who cannot afford to remember badly. We stamp, we sign, we retie. He drinks a clay cup of water, touches his hat, leaves with a hoof that sounds like someone thinking. At the edge of the yard, a man mends a male sack mouth with a bone needle and wax twine. He pushes the awl, pulls the stitch, knots with 2 fingers. He trims a ragged thread and burns its mouth smooth in the lamp's low flame. The sack lies still, grateful in the way cloth is, by being easier tomorrow. This is the anchor, needle, awl, lamp bead letter balance at 0 key on nail. If your eyes drift closed, the knot has already learned to hold. Evening trains its first shadow across the tiles. We write the night bag label, ink modest and legible. Sevilla CDs. The rate table sleeps under its stone. We put the stone back on the corner, because wind learns English and Spanish the same way paper does not care. The coach comes in from the other side. Lamps like 2 small moons with good manners. The guard passes the token board, our agreed right to the road between posts, through the window, and we hang it where the driver will see it for the return. He gives us his board for the stretch behind. Small wooden laws keep heavy traffic light. This is the anchor line, token board, hook, lamp letter scale await key ready. If sleep has visited you and gone again, you missed nothing. Boards prefer to be boring. Night letters arriving newer, hands more tired. We stamp dates, weigh, and tie. A priest's hand, a seamstress hand, a soldier's paper knows them in a way voices do not. A long parcel of reed pens comes down from a school. The label says by night, not by heat, and we oblige. The beam scale smiles by not moving much. The cook at the inn sets 2 bowls on the sill. stew that learned patience, bread that skipped speeches. We eat into spoons and 3 breaths, and go on with the string and the stamps. Work like this has a way of eating too. This is the one line for sleep. If sleep arrives, let it. The night coach will roll, and the ledger will not lose its place. We lamp test the yard. 1 lantern by the gate, 1 by the hitching rail, 1 on the coach step. Wick short, glass clear. The farrier brings a hoof to the light, the shoe sits, the nail bends, the clinch lies down. He touches the hoof like someone checking a child's blanket. Done. The coach returns. The guard's horn lifts, speaks low, and sleeps. He swings the bag down. We open the hasp, weigh the bag for record, and write the number that will match the number at the big office when the day dies. Letters from the south sit like folded migratory birds. We stamp the city's mark wet and clean at the corner, so the morning reader will see day and place before thought and worrying. The ledger gets its last lines. We draw a short bar in the margin and a dot at the end. This is the anchor line. Ledger closed with a string. Lamp lowered to a blue bead. Letter scale covered with its cloth. Key on nail. If sleep arrives now, let it. Wheels will cool, horses will nose, grain bags will sleep, and morning will find the stamp pad moist, the twine coiled, the board on its hook, and the 3 quiet things where a hand expects them. The 11th part. Jerez de la Frontera, mid-19th century. Before sun finds the courtyard, the bodega air is already cool and dry, walls high, windows small, floors of dampened Alburo sand. We lift the iron bar, turn the long acequia quarter in a lock that has asked for 1 clean stop since it learned its manners, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the ledger table so the page, the hydrometer cylinder, and the chalk keep inside a calm oval of light. Rows of Boaty's American oak casks sit 3 high, bellies forward, hoops dark as quiet iron. This is the anchor line. We are in a sherry bodega at Don Lamplit. Small beam scale at 0, long cellar key back on its nail. If your breathing has slowed, keep it wine and air prefer unhurried company. A boy opens the high shutters a hand's width. Morning moves through the soplador as those little vents just enough to please the floor. The pale yeast veil that keeps the surface of wine from chasing a wrong dream. A pail and a broom of esparto wait by the door. We sprinkle water along the Alburo where yesterday's damp forgot itself. The sand darkens, exhales, and then holds the room at a good, soft number. No one writes that number, the hand and the cheek know it better than digits can. On the bench a glass cylinder takes the first test. The hydrometer bomb stem, easy to read without pride, floats in yesterday's press sample. We cite the meniscus. The stem says the must knows where it stands between fruit and promise. A note in the ledger reads it back, date, vineyard, arrobas, degree. The pointer on the small beam scale bows and returns for the copper sulfate paper we use to test clarity. A habit we keep whether anyone asks us to or not. This is the anchor. Lamp on the ledger, hydrometer at rest, beam scale at 0, key on the nail. If sleep arrives, it will not disturb the numbers, they sit like stones in a shallow jar. We walk the nave. Chalk signs on the cask heads whisper where each criadera sits, first rest, second, third, and at the floor the solera. The barrel row closest to the wine that meets the world. Lines and little circles. Names short enough to write with a thumb and a stub. Via alta, Macharnudo, Carrascal. The floor likes the shade, we do not give it a reason to complain. We listen at a bung. Silence, good. A ladder leans. We climb with a Valencia, that narrow cup on a cane rod, and draw a quiet thread through the vent hole. The cup says a polite plop into the glass. On the tongue the fluz work shows not loud, not shy, a dry thought with a soft edge. We write, no topping, and the chalk meets the cask head with a mark the cooper would understand across a street and through a tired afternoon. This is the anchor line. Valencia, ladder, chalk lamp still, beam scale com, key at its nail. If your eyes close for 10 breaths, the floor will not stop breathing to scold you. We take sacra, a small drawing from the solera. A copper spigot fits the thief's mouth, a cane funnel greets the thread in a demijohn. Not much enough to make room for roca refreshment from the first criadera above. The rope on the demijohn's handle knows the knot that gives and holds in one gesture. The ledger learns 2 lines, sacca out, roco in. A tidy sentence, subtract, add, leave the family quiet. At the far, the cooper's corner holds truths, a shave horse, a hoop driver, a hammer that never had to shout, a pot of hot water for staves that need to learn humility. A hoop taps once, iron answers in a single note that means held. We leave a hoop chalk mark on the stave where a year might show itself too early. By the door a small platform scale mines sacks of Alborough and a bundle of canes. We weigh a sack, rider to mark, pointer back to centre. We write too, not because the sand cares, because the book does, and because the book lets absent men join present work without stepping in it. This is the anchor, platform scale, chalk, ledger lamp key. If sleep leans close, keep it staves will not take offence. We visit boater after boater. Some want a whisper of wine, others want to sit where a float looks thin. We lay a little water on the Alborough, open the vent another finger, and give the bung cloth a twist to teach draughts better manners. We do not talk about it, we do it. The room understands better than words. In the corner, a little still sits alembic copper ready to smell a spirit if we need to wake a sleepy butt. Today not. Today wants lamplight and chalk, not louder tools. A stack of Cotavinos, those tulip glasses 3 high, rinse clear in a bowl that learn to be chipped without complaint. We taste, we spit, we write. Our words are small. Our throat stays grateful. This is the one soft image we keep this hour. The floor under the Valencia thread lifts like a thin sheet a hand could make from dust and patience, then back to ladders, chalk, and ledger numbers that breathe without telling everyone about it. Mid-morning, wagons cough in the courtyard. Skins and casks ride in from a log press house north of town. We set the wheel chocks like a man sits a stall. One motion, one pause. A beam across the trestles takes the skins, and the must goes to a vat under a gloved hand that knows how to persuade a valve without teaching it resentment. We weigh the skins empty and full on the stout scale. A boy writes the differences careful enough that the numbers stand by themselves, even if the ink forgot to be orderly. He will be the man later for now. He's the hand with no argument. A merchant steps through the door with a hat that believes in shade. He wants to know whether his butt is ready to travel to CDs. We take the ladder, the Valencia, and the glass, and do not add words he did not ask for. The glass says Montecar on the rim, an old joke about texture, and the merchant smiles with his eyes only. We mark the cask head, a ring and a stroke, and write 2 lines in the bill book with a number and a promise without adjectives. He leaves a coin on felt. We fold a paper under the weight and move the coin to its drawer, although a thought moving to sleep. This is the anchor line, bill book, coin on felt, chalk mark lamps, pull and shaken platform scale, an offended key in its place. If drowsiness is a visitor, we lend it a chair. In the nave with the wines that want air, we lift bungs and listen. A faint tells of a gentle ferment finishing a last sentence. The bung returns loosely to keep the sentence from turning into an argument. The floor touches its own ceiling and behaves. We tilt the cup, we tilt the book, we tilt the day. Everything returns to level. We carry a small jug to the spirit shelf, not brandy for glass, brandy for work. A touch stiffens a butt where a gap grew wide. The ledger receives the half line, we underline nothing. Chalk draws a discreet dot on the cask head and calls it a day. Nobody but us knows what the dot means, the dot knows enough. At noon the yard gets its slice of bread, and olive oil we get the same. The Alborough exhales again. We lower the lamp wick, while the sun writes our light for a while, and we lift a jug to wet the sand by the door. The broom learns to new edges and forgets the old. A cat steps along a stave and does not discover anything worth telling. This is the anchor, broom, Alborough, lamp beam scale resting key on the nail. If sleep taps your shoulder, answer with a nod, the casks do not mind. Afternoon brings Rocco, from 3rd Criadera down to 2nd, from 2nd to 1st, from 1st to Salera. A short hose and a cane funnel make a small river between cousins. We watch the headspace, leave it honest, write the line. The ladder hums on the stave as a foot climbs and climbs again. Hands remember holdfasts by the scar and not by the name. The Valencia learns the day's weight and does not complain. The cooper asks for the hoop driver. We hand it to him. He touches each hoop as you would touch a sleeping child's blanket. Not to wake, to confirm. One hoop takes a shallow tap and says there. The stave learns obedience. An old lesson, a fresh one too. We set the driver down with its face to the wall. Steel is calm when not asked to pasture. This is the anchor line. Hose, funnel, hoop lamp, small beam scale, where it was key where it is. If your eyes close for 12 breaths, the line of work will be where you left it. In the tasting corner a sheet of paper holds a map of the bodega. Nothing grand, just aisles and numbers. We draw a short arrow where a cask's voice changed for the better. Another arrow where it asked for another week. The arrows face each other, like men at a lane who have learned how to pass without touching shoulders. We file the page under today's string. The string owns more truth than a long memory. A neighbor from Sanlúcar brings gossip about wines. We listen, but the shutters and the flaw tell us more. We open one, close another, and nod as if the wine will take an interest in our manners. It will not, but we like to be polite. Late, a demijohn goes to the office. We weigh the empty, weigh the full. The rider walks to its number, the pointer bows and returns. The bill book likes that. We wrap the glass in straw rope and tie with tape that knows how to open without teeth. The wagon will carry it without story. This is the one soft line we allow before closing. Afternoon light slants across barrel hoops like a ruler that forgot to scold, then back to keys, wicks, and small chalk. We wash the Valencia in a long rinse, hang it on its nail, where air finished what water began. We set the hydrometer cylinder on a block to dry, stem laid beside like a reed that did today's song. We cap the demijohns, set the bungs firm but not proud, brush the alborough smooth where feet scribbled. The ledger gets its last lines, Saka, Rocco, taste, hoop, damp. We draw a short bar and a dot. Finished. This is the anchor line. Lamp wick turned to a blue bead. Beam scale covered with its cloth. Long cellar key on its nail bow left. Teeth write the habit of this wall. If sleep arrives now, let it. The flaw will keep its veil. The casks will keep their breaths, and morning will find chalk on heads, arrows on paper, and the three quiet things where a hand expects them. The 12th part. Barcelona, mid-19th century. The street holds a sea breeze that smells of iron rails and tarred rope from the waterfront. We lift the shop bar, turn the print room key a quarter in a brass mouth that likes one clean stop, and set a hot-shaded lamp on the stone ink table so the slab, the inking balls, and the composing trays sit inside a steady oval of light. Type drawers rest with their brass pulls forward. The little labels are E-O-N, as stand like polite neighbors who have agreed to speak only when asked. This is the anchor line. We are in a letterpress shop at Don Lamplight. Small beam scale at 0 on the pigment shelf. Print room key back on its nail. If your breathing has slowed, keep it tight, will line itself when hands remember the order. We open shutters to fingers to let the breeze find its own speed without learning to bully the paper. The apprentice carries a pail and waits the flagstones one pass, then a second to keep dust honest. On the stone, we lay the muller and the ink knife, both wiped last night. A rag that knows only pigment and oil waits on the sill. The Albion press stands near the window, its eagle counterweight quiet, its platen level, its tympan and frisket sleeping under the bar. A coin key hangs from a hook, a square-mouthed wrench that turns little wedges to make a big truth. Tight is tight, not heroic. This is the anchor. Lamp on slab. Beam scale at 0.4, lamp black and varnish. Coin key on the hook. If your eyes blink long, the press will not move without you. The copy for today, an announcement of a steamer's sailing to broadsides for a bookseller, and a handbill for a cabinet maker who makes drawers that never argulize under a stone weight on the imposing table. We lift the weight, smooth the paper, and kiss our fingers to wake the stick. The composing stick, a metal tray with an adjustable end sets to 24 ms for the handbill, 20 for the notice. The gauge screw seats the stick balances in the left hand, the right learns the tray by muscle and old mistakes. We set, letter by letter, space by space, barest of breaths between words. N-A-T-U-R-A-L. The letters walk backward in the stick, because printing thinks in mirrors. We thumb a hair of leading thin strips of metal that lend air to a line between paragraphs. A line full, we slide a regult in, set another. The apprentice brings a small galley tray, we tip the first lines onto it, with a turn of the wrist that takes a year to learn and 10 to forget. The galley accepts type as if it wished to be heavier. This is the anchor line. Stick, galley. Lamp the beam scale on the pigment shelf, still at rest the key on its nail. If sleep leans at your shoulder, let it, the alphabet is patient for a living. We move to the case for the italic F, not the Roman. Not the long then two small caps for the city name, because every port prefers to see itself dressed a button higher. The apprentice reads the copy 3 words ahead, and we pick, place, and plane. A bodkin a little pick lifts a wrong B, where AD should sit we turn it. Seat it back the case forgives the mistake, though it has seen this hour before. We prove on the galley. The pressman lays a proofing tin, inks to inking balls on the slab, ball to slab. Lift, roll, quarter turn, roll and kisses the type with a pressure he would use to wake a child for bread, not for school. Paper rests on the ink, a roller passes, the sheet lifts, the letters speak in grey. We read aloud in the quiet way the room prefers. Passengers will present tickets, one comma stands loud, we file it to a breath. 1S leans, we square it. We chalk the corrections on the stone. The sheet goes to the line on the wall, where it will dry into memory without clamour. This is the anchor. Proof, chalk. Balls lamp making a soft oval, the beam scale quiet, the coin key waiting. If your eyes close for 10 breaths, the karma will still be calm when you return. Now the form. We carry the galley to the chase iron frame on the imposing stone. Furniture, wooden bars of various lengths fills the space around the type. Coins, little wedge clamps hold the furniture. The coin key turns with a sound, like to coins disagreeing and then becoming friends. We plane the top wood block, mallet gentle until the type sits level, if it had thought of doing so on its own. The apprentice brings the gauge pins to catch the paper later. We set them by habit left low, right high so a sheet lands true and leaves without making a gossip of itself. We wipe the tympan. We lay fresh packing under it, 3 sheets for the broadside paper, plain. No pride, then close the frisket and cut windows where type will kiss paper, and blank where would cut and margin will not. The coin key returns to its hook, the hook admits it without speaking. The Albion's bar waits, like a hand on a door that has already learned to open. This is the anchor line. Chase locked, tympan dressed, key on hook, lamp scale. If sleep arrives, let it, coins do not loosen for want of an audience. We mix ink, lamp black, a fine soot that thinks well of itself, meets boiled linseed varnish on the slab. We weigh a pinch on the beam scale, because noonlight flatters eyes and lies to judgment. Leaf weights walk pointer bows. We add a whisper of burnt plate oil. Grind with the muller until the grain stops telling us what book it came from. The balls take ink like bread takes butter. Not too much, not too little, just enough to persuade. The slab shines without boasting. We pull the first proofs on the Albion. Hand on bar, pressure firm and honest. The platen kisses the tympan kisses the paper finds type and leaves bearing a low, even mirror of the form. We hang the wet sheet on a line with wooden pegs that have known winter. The air does the rest. We look sideways at the ink. No set off, no blush in the counter of the O. Thin hairlines gleam. We nod without applause. This is the one soft image we keep. The eagle wait above the Albion, like a bird that learned to sleep on command, then back to bars, pins, and the slow draws of type. A bookseller's boy arrives with copy for a new title list. He carries a parcel and a pencil behind his ear, as if the pencil were a small whistle that once heard music. We weigh the parcel 10 gatherings, not yet bound on the stout counter scale, the rider bow on return. We make a receipt, stamp it with a wafer key, and scales in a circle no bigger than a thumb and Lay the copy under the stone weight. The boy touches the eagle on the press, lightly, as if to confirm that birds can be made of iron and obligation. He leaves with a nod, spending nothing and owing less. We set small type, nonpareil and brevier. For the book list, the composing stick grows narrow finger slow by half and double their accuracy. The apprentice sings under the breath the order of the Caesar EIOU, BCD, a song that shows its age and its utility in the same breath. A wrong P intrudes again, we turn it. The case forgives, so does the line. We prove, we correct, we breathe. This is the anchor line. Small type, stick, lamp beam scale at 0 again, key unmoved. If sleep leans, keep it, no line here will run away. Mid-morning, we lock to forms for the steamer notice and the cabinet maker's handbill. The cabinet maker insists on the address true and the hour certain. Both are easy here. We set a rule to thin brass lines above the address and below the rate. Then lift a small woodcut of a dovetail drawer that makes its own promise without adjectives. The queen key turns once, twice the plain block whispers and falls silent. The form feels like a floor that any foot could trust. The press learns its cadence. Ink balls roll, sheet lays, bar draws, impression kisses, bar lifts, sheet leaves for the drying line. Frisket opens, balls roll again. The apprentice steps just ahead, not behind. So we are never finding each other's elbows. 15 sheets, 30, 60. We stack in racks with poles that do not invite sagging. Each stack gets a card, title, count, time. Numbers are the comfortable chairs of this room. A woman from the tailor's across the way brings a button tin to weigh 4 thread, not our trade. But the beam scale is a neighborhood tool. We zero, weigh, write a number on a scrap. She exchanges a short gossip about the ship's leaving tide and the captain's feelings and leaves a coin on felt. The coin feels like someone else's habit and sits there with dignity. This is the anchor. Racks, cards, coin on felt, lamp key scale. If your eyes rest, the ink will do what ink does when nobody pushes. Noon warms the shop. We open the door a palm's width and set a water bowl on the window sill to temper the air. The paper stack relaxes but does not curl. We adjust packing by a sheet, the impression evens. We take lunch leaning against the imposing stone, bread, a slice of cheese, a pear, then one sip of water. The slab waits under its skin of ink that does not dry quickly. We do not wipe it, we do not admire it. It is a tool like a spoon. Afternoon brings corrections from the bookseller's man. 3 titles moved, 1 price adjusted. We lift the form to the imposing stone. A bodkin finds the end dash, replaces a hyphen. The space thins to taste. The queen key turns. The plain block kisses. The form returns. We pull to proofs, compare, nod. Changes should be less dramatic than apologies. This is the anchor line. Bodkin, coin key, plain lamp with a smaller wick beam scale under its cloth key where it should be. If sleep has stepped inside the door, let it stand with its back to the wall and watch the press, does not need it to work. A sailor steps in with a notice for lost gear, a coil of line gone from the key. He's gentle with the type we set and with the words he chooses. We make him a small bill, he pays in coins. You can smell the sea on. We set his notice in a stick, proof, and pull 20 on scraps trimmed from the cabinet maker's job. Paper that finds a second life sleeps well that night. We mix a darker ink for the steamer's title line, lamp black, and a touch of Prussian blue weighed on the beam scale, so the blue does not forget itself. The Muller agrees. We roll the balls in a figure 8 until they carry a night sky thin over the day. The title speaks a little louder now, but not so loud it wakes anyone who reads it with a full stomach and a chair. This is the one soft image we keep. The frisket window, like shutters on a house, that learn to keep the weather out, then back to type, pins, and the wooden talk of the bar. We clean the first form and set the second in the chase. The apprentice washes the balls with a rag and a spoon of turpentine. Far from the paper, he learned that by mistake only once. We hang the rag on a nail outside to talk to the wind. We wipe the slab, lay a new skin of ink, roll until the balls speak in a single, low word, then silence. The press resumes its sentence. Toward evening, we count sheets by 5s, then tens, touch each with a finger to remind the stack we are not adding more than we mean to. We hang finished broadsides on 2 lines in the passage. The air moves, the paper learns flat again. We stack only when the backs do not say wet. The apprentice reads the count card. The number on the line and the number on the card become the same thing. He smiles without teeth. We prefer smiles like that. We set the last handbill's ornament, a little ring of dots, and a key at the foot, small enough to be a kindness and large enough to be a signature. The cabinet maker will say, later, they put a key on it, and we will not, because keys return like lamps and scales and keep hands oriented in rooms people love. This is the anchor line. Last pull, bar up, lamp small, the beam scale breathed, and return the shop key on nail bar left. Teeth right the habit of this wool. If sleep arrives, let it. The form will not walk. We clean. Type lifted from the chase back to the case by the handful, leveled on the distributing stick. Each letter finding its little village again. E to E. A to a no heroism. Just honesty. Slugs of lead go to the left tray, reglets to their bundled furniture stacked with the largest at the back, smallest in front, where habit will find it first. The coin key wipes once, hangs. The slab drinks oil and gives back a dark mirror. The inking balls sit with their faces up. A cat might walk across them and become a sign no cat will. But we turn the faces away from curiosity anyway. We copy the day into the job book. Steamer noticed 150. Cabinet maker handbill 300. Book list 150. Ink mixed to weights paper from the mill by the river. Batch 14 changes at 15:20, done at 19:10. We press a wafer seal on the corner key and scales and draw a dot and a line. Done. For the last soft image, the composing stick on the stone, empty, looks like a measure that remembers every word that passed through it and intends to tell none. Then we lower the lamp wick. This is the anchor line. Lamp turned to a blue bead. Beam scale covered with its cloth. Shop key settled on its nail. If sleep arrives now, let it. Morning will find the forms tied with string. Proof sheets dry. The Albion clean. The coin key hanging where a hand expects it. And the 3 quiet things, lamp, scales, key, ready to begin the day without argument. The 13th part. Granada, mid-19th century. The alley is cool. The Sierra sits white in the distance, as if someone laid a cloth along the horizon. We lift the shop bar, turn the long door key a quarter in a brass mouth that prefers one clean stop, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the bench, so the glue pot, the thickness caliper, and the little beam scale on the shelf sit inside a steady oval of light. On pegs above the window, side sets of cypress hang like folded wings on the wall. A spruce billet waits for the first thin page to be turned. This is the anchor line. We are in a luthier's room at Don Lamplit. Beam scale at 0, door key back on its nail. If your breath has slowed, keep it with listens best when no one raises a voice. We choose the top to spruce haps, straight grain. Winter lines close as careful handwriting. We warm the glue pot till the pearl glue threads from the brush and breaks clean, not stringy. A shooting board and a long plane through the joint. The 2 halves meet, light disappears. We paint glue along the seam. Bring halves together and set them under a bar with 3 cam clamps that know the difference between pressure and pride. A thin wedge says enough in a language clamps respect. The seam learns to forget it was ever to. This is the anchor. Jointing board, glue pot, clamps, lamps circle on pale spruce beam scale, a sleep key on nail. If your eyes close for 10 breaths, the seam keeps its promise. When the seam calls, we plane the plate to thickness. The iron whispers, curls lift and coil, and the plate begins to talk back with a note under the fingertips. A thickness caliper, simple and honest, reads 2.5 millimeters near the lower bout, a shade more at the shoulders. We scrape with a card scraper until the surface feels like a ribbon's breadth. A tap near the center gives a low, agreeable do near the edge, a softer thought. We are not composing music, we are avoiding arguments later. This is the anchor line. Caliper, scraper, tap, lamp, steady, beam scale at 0 key, where a hand expects it. If sleep leans in, let it, the plate remembers without witnesses. The rosette comes next. Veneer strips maple, walnut, dyed black are glued into a long log, a tiny brickwork of pattern. Once set, we slice the log into thin tiles with a fine saw. On the solara the workboard with a shallow dish that gives the top its dome we mark a circle with the circle cutter. To knives on a bar, turned slowly. Grain obeying not advice, but geometry. We lift the ring, drop in the mosaic tiles, and set outer and inner purfling lines, those to quiet borders that keep the pattern from wandering. Glue breathes in, curls lift. A warm bone burnisher tastes each joint smooth. The rosette becomes a calm eye of a pale face. This is the anchor, circle cutter, mosaic tiles, burnisher lamp tasting varnish colored light beam scale waiting key still. If your head nods, the ring will not go crooked. Bracing. We mark the fan, 7 bars for this top, lighter under the treble, a little stiffer under the bass, to lower harmonic bars, 1 upper. The braces are split from spruce, so grain stays straight. We plane them to a gentle triangle that knows how to be light and how to refuse collapse. The glue pot wakes again. We paint a warm line, set each brace in its pencil ghost, and hold with go bars thin sticks sprung between brace and ceiling border with small cam clamps where the ceiling has no patience. In the upper bouts we set 2 little closing bars to keep shoulders from learning bad habits. This is the anchor line. Fan braces on warm spruce, glue that threads and breaks. Solera dish lamp com scale quiet key where it should be. If sleep arrives, let it hide glue cures under silence. Sides. Spanish cypress for a blanker light. Quick rosewood, if the patron favored weight and perfume. Today the cypress waits. We dampen a side with a clean sponge and lay it on the bending iron, a hot, rounded iron that teaches curves without speeches. A steel strap keeps fibers honest. Steam breathes wood, remembers the waist, finds its line low about, falls into a habit that will make the top say yes later. We set the bent side in a mold by 2 pegs and a strap. We bend the partner the same, mirror to mirror. This is the anchor. Bending iron, damp sponge, strap lamp low beam scale in different key untroubled. If your eyes close and open again, the curve will still be a curve. The neck is Spanish, heel and foot one piece. Slots for the sides, already cut, no dovetails, no bolts, just wood, learning another wood's language. We mark the center line, drill for the pegs, if pegs it will be, or set holes for machine plates if the patron is modern. The headstock shape we cut with a frame saw, and love less than the soundboard, but enough to avoid errors. A small beam scale weighs shellac flakes, for later 30 on the 100 by habit, because varnish made by opinion spoils patience and shine. This is the anchor line. Spanish heel with its slots, shellac weighed on the beam scale, lamp on the bench, key on nail. If drowsiness sits beside you, it does not endanger anything. We marry sides to heel. Hot glue along the slots, a push that knows when to stop. And to ligatures of tape teach the sides to listen while the glue cools. The tail meets a block cedar, light set between sides. We line the ribs with tenalones, little triangular peons of spruce glued 1 by 1. Each pressed with a fingertip and a whisper, a necklace of obedience around the rim. No clamps here, only patience. We mark the peons at the waist with a pencil, so a next hand will learn where a first hand stopped. The pencil likes to be asked twice. This is the anchor. Tenalones in a row, glue scents, pencil marks lamp breathing scale into 0 key in its habit. If sleep folds over you, the peons will not fall. Top to rim, we spread glue along the linings and peons. Set the soundboard now braced and proud onto the ribs, and use spool clamps around the rim, gentle as knuckles on a door where a baby sleeps. Squeeze out speaks a quiet language. A rag hears it and cleans without lecturing. At the foot, a wedge teaches the lower bout to meet the tail block without gossip. We walk the clamps once, twice. The room answers in wood. A very light tap becomes a new voice. This is the anchor line. Clamps round, top seated. Rag folded, lamp steady scale, and key unchanged. If sleep arrives, let it. Glue does not prefer ice to time. Back next. Cypress halves jointed and brace simple. A shallow ladder, 2 bars, maybe 3. A back strip down the middle, not loud, just honest. We close the box. Spool clamps again. The tap tone rises, the air inside becomes a word we do not say. The purfling strip, thin as a sentiment we avoided, trims the seam. A small plane walks the edge to flush. Scraper finishes the sentence the plane began. We carve the heel with a gouge, then a chisel, then a knife that will not lie about sharpness. The curve finds a shadow it prefers and keeps it. Ebony for the fingerboard, flat, straight, heavy enough to remind the neck to mind itself. We mark scale length with a rule and a template slots. 4 frets go down at distances that make sense to numbers and ears both. The saw sings a thin note, the template agrees. We glue the board to the neck, clamp by cam and strap, sight the line down to the bridge position, and breathe. This is the anchor line. Fingerboard on neck, slots clean. Scale on its lamp, low beam scale, hiding under shellac flakes, key of thought on the nail. If your eyes fall shut, the glue will not run to mischief. We carve the bridge from rosewood, tie block with a thin bone cap, wings that learn lightness, saddle slot true. We drill 6 holes for the strings with a bow drill whose rhythm would settle a disagreeable dog. We round edges that hands will know. A dry fit on the dome of the top tells truth. A chalk rub on the bridge's underside teaches micro curves. When chalk disappears evenly, we know feet will sit. We set the bridge aside, the wood understands schedules. Fret wire German silver arrives straight, becomes little arcs. We chamfer slot edges with a 3-corner file. Start each fret with a light tap, and seat with a hammer that thinks of cloth. Ends nip, ends file, ends learn to be kind to hands. The nut in bone, the saddle in bone, both cut as if they were important and not news. Pegs turned of ebony or rose would slide in holes and learn a cone that does not slip. If the patron wanted machines, brass plates come out, screws meet wood clicks, learn to be polite. This is the one soft image we keep this hour. The soundboard under lamp looks like warm milk with a ring where the rosette sits like a moon. Then back to chisels, clamps, and the little laws of hands. French polish gomme lacquer, the beam scale weighs shellac flakes, and a spoon of sandarac. The alcohol receives them in a bottle that learn to be patient. We cut pumice for pour filling, pumice fine as talc and wetter pad. The mueca, with alcohol and the thread of oil. The first session is not about shine, it is about teaching wood to accept small gifts. Circles, figure eights, straight pulls along the grain, whispering more than stating. Pumice and alcohol make a paste that falls into pores and disappears into clarity. The second session shows a low glow, the third begins to remember moonlight. We do not ask for more than the day is willing to provide. This is the anchor line, mueca, flakes on the scale, bottle on the sill, lamp smaller key, still bench quiet. If sleep arrives, let it. Shellac prefers patience to attention. Setup, we drill the bridge, tie holes to the right lean. String slots at the nut spaced by a rule and a habit. The fingerboard receives a quick rub with oil and the cloth that has never known varnish. We wind gut on pegs prima, segunda, tercera. Then silver wound for the rest, not at the bridge, simple and true. Capstan turns on the head that wakes slowly and do not learn drama. We lift the string to pitch, then down a step, then back tomorrow. Wood likes to be introduced gently. This is the anchor, strings tied, peg turns counted, bridge straight, lamp making a shy pull scale at 0 again, key where it belongs. If your eyes close for a few breaths, the guitar will not ask for applause. We listen, a tap behind the bridge says me, the air says, lure's soft pluck of open strings that have tension speaks of what will be, not what is. We shim a saddle a hair, lower the nut a shade, take 2 strokes of a file off a fret that told a small lie. A cloth meets the finish and learns to stop before it can begin to boast. The rosette looks up without claiming attention. The fan braces under it remind us of the work nobody will see and everyone will hear. A patron steps in and does not talk about music. He tests the neck in the hand as if it were a tall handle. He looks down the fingerboard like a carpenter, not a poet. He nods. He asks when to return. We point to a day and say a number. He leaves a coin on felt and we slide it under the weight. The book gets 1 line, a date, and the note French polish too. Strings on settle. This is the anchor line. Book, felt, Coin lamp beam scale breathing under flakes, key a small iron thought on the white wall. If your head nods again, good. The guitar needs a night too. Evening. We hang the mueca where air can finish what hands began. We plug the glue pot. Place the circle cutter back in its drawer. Lay the scraper where its edge will not learn company, and sweep shavings into a basket that becomes excellent kindling only when asked. The bending iron calls under its cover. The thickness caliper returns to its nail. We turn the shellac bottle once to show flakes and spirit one last time, and then leave it. We lower the lamp wick to a blue bead. The new guitar sits on a hook by a silk strap, shadow thin, and even no brag, no sorrow. The shop exhales. The street outside moves like a slow river behind the door. We touch the beam scale with a finger and draw the cover over it. The key receives our hand, turns its quarter, and returns to the nail bow to the left. Teeth to the right, the habit of this wall and this trade. If sleep arrives, let it. Hide glue will harden to a memory. Shellac will set to a moon. Morning will find the Solera patient. The brace is dry, the rosette comb, and the lamp, the scales, and the key where a hand expects them. The 14th part. Jan Hills, mid-19th century. The grove holds a blue before sunrise that tastes faintly of dust and leaf. We lift the mill bar, turn the Almazara key a quarter in an iron lock that likes one clean stop, and set a horn-shaded lamp on the settling bench so the clarifying jars, the ladle, and the small beam scale on the shelf sit inside a steady oval of light. Outside, rows of olives lean like pages in a book inside. To granite runners wait in their trough, still as to sleeping oxen. This is the anchor line. We are in an olive press at Don Lamplight. Beam scale at 0, long mill key back on its nail. If your breathing has slowed, keep it, the stones and the fruit will meet without anyone raising a voice. We rake the night's ash from beneath the water kettle, lay 3 small sticks, and coax the flame to remember its manners. Warm water will ease skins and help paste move, not by trick, by courtesy. Esparto mats carpachos hang on pegs by the threshing fork. We brush each with a stiff hand broom, so yesterday's crumbs won't teach today's oil to remember grit. The funnel to the settling jars sits inverted. We right it, find the linen filter where we folded it clean, and set it aside like a plate waiting its turn. This is the pit, a circular trough with 2 granite runners that travel the rim. The central post rises like a promise. We tip a basket of fruit mix of picul and manzanilla into the mouth. Leaves and small twigs fall to the floor. A boy sweeps them toward the donkey's stall. We draw water from the kettle with a dipper and sprinkle the olives, so skins will forgive the rollers. The donkey takes the beam gentle and walks a circle he learned when he learned his name. The runners move, slow, sure, and the fruit becomes paste in a language without verbs. This is the anchor. Beam to donkey, runners to trough, lamp in its pool, beam scale at quiet. If your eyes close for 10 breaths, the circle will still be a circle when you return. We lift paste by wooden scoop into a low tub and judge grind by feel-no stones. No pride, a texture like wet bread that never met yeast. The tub sits beside the press frame, a beam and screw. The old Vega y Husillo with a stone bed that has known winters. We lay the first carpaccio on the bed, spread paste with the back of the scoop, set a cross of cane, so flow remembers a path. Lay another mat, spread again. Stack rises, carpaccio, paste, carpaccio, paste, more like a stack of soba cakes than anything men would eat. A small ring guides the columns so edges stay even. Between layers, a slow sprinkle of warm water tells the paste to share. This is the anchor line. Carpaccios, paste, cane cross lamp steady key on nail beam scale. Still a witness, not a judge. If drowsiness leans against your shoulder, let it, the stack will not forget to breathe. We bring the beam down with a handle that believes in patience. The screws threads oak on oak, speak a low word to the frame with every quarter turn. Pressure rises. The first green threads run from the mat edges into the stone gutter. Not pure oil, not yet Almazara juice, oil and vegetation water. Alpec and promise. The gutter carries it to a settling trough. The boy watches the color settle and lifts a dipper to the funnel when the stream turns less cloudy. We test with a finger slick, no grit, a smell like cut leaf and warm stone. This is the anchor. Screw, gutter, funnel lamps oval on the bench, more beam scale upright key, where a hand expects. If your head nods, the stream will go on writing its thin line. We turn the handle, pause, turn again. The carpachos breathe, then learn to be quiet. When the stack tells us it has given enough, we lift the beam a little, wedge it so the screw will not teach us regret, and unstack, mat to peg, paste scraped to a tub that will become soap or feed. We wash mats in a trough with warm water, under whisper of ash, not to make them new, to let them forget today. They hang and drip into the same box that caught yesterday's truth. At the settling jars a row of tonnages, sunk in the cool floor the emulsion rests. Oil rises to the top like a soft decision Alpec sinks. We skim with a shallow copper pan, lay oil through the linen in the funnel, and watch it thicken in the neck of the jar as cooler air shows it the next shape of itself. We do not hurry, the linen dislikes hurry. A cork on a cord waits to settle the neck later. An old trick, a good one. This is the anchor line. Tinaja necks, linen, pan lamp beam scale at 0 key steady. If sleep walks you to the door and back, the oil will still be there, higher by a finger. Mid-morning brings baskets from the grove. Men lay them near the pit, a woman counts by tens with pebbles in a bowl, so numbers learn to sit still. We weigh one basket on the stout platform scale beam with rider and mark tear with chalk. The rider bows and returns. The book receives 2 lines, baskets, estimate, note on leaves. The book never gossips and cannot be flattered. We cut fresh cane spacers with a knife that tells the truth about sharpness. We wash the trough with a squeegee that used to be a broom. Leaves go to the donkey if he asks politely. The donkey blinks and decides to remain a donkey. We smile because this is the correct order of things. This is the one soft image we keep for the hour. The first oil in a glass looks like green learning to speak. Then we return to mats, screw, and the small science of waiting. A neighbor brings a jug and asks for a lamp oil clear, not the green first run. We point to the second jar where yesterday's decant waits. We draw with a ladle, hold the glass up to the lamp, and find no thread, no cloud. The small beam scale weighs the jug for the book, empty and full. The rider walks a finger, the pointer returns. We write a roba and a half, a number and a name, and tie a wafer to his handle with a mark for settled. He leaves a coin unfelt. The coin waits to be moved, we allow it. We set a small oleometer, a hydrometer, made to remember oil, into a tall glass for curiosity. Numbers mean less here than patience, but we like the way the stem floats. It says oil thinks itself lighter than water. We answer we knew. We dry it and lay it in its case, because glass tells stories we did not ask for, if left to its own thoughts. This is the anchor line. Jug on beam scale, ledger, oleometer, dry lamp, key oil. If your eye's dim, the numbers will not go wandering. The mule driver arrives with sacks of orullo spent paste from the last press. We weigh his cart on the yard weigh bridge. The iron pointer wavers, forgives, and settles. Orullo goes to the soap boiler, or the still for orullo spirit. If the season asks today, it becomes fuel for the kitchen and a story the old men enjoy not telling. We write a line in chalk on his tailboard, so the next gate will treat him as someone we expected. We run a second pressing with warm water, less for oil, more for tidy. The juice is duller, the smell less green. It finds its own jar and its own customer. Nothing here makes a speech about hierarchy. Lamps burn what they are given. Bread takes oil of any first that did not fail its nose. This is the anchor. Second run, slower thread, separate jar lamp making a smaller pull beam scale, covered with its cloth, for a minute key unmoved. If sleep edges in, let it, the jar will stay under the funnel without learning bad habits. Noon silvers the grove. We sit under the lintel with bread, a wedge of cheese, tomatoes a cousin grew, and a saucer of last week's oil. 3 grains of salt from a pocket learn to be useful. We spoon oil onto the bread. It stands like a low hill, not a puddle, then sinks without a sound. A fly arrives like a man who knows his own name. We invite him elsewhere with a hand that learned not to slap labour. Back at the beam, the screw wakes easy. We lay another tower. Carpaccio, paste, cane, carpaccio. The donkey circles with a patience that makes clocks nervous. Someone hums a song that has no words, because words would make the day forget how to be a day. We tighten to the sound of oak threads thinking. Oil writes a line in the gutter again. A boy dips his finger, tastes, and nods with a face that does not fear agreement. This is the anchor line. Beam down, gutter thin. Ladle clean lamp near the jars, beam scale breathing under its cloth, key shining a little where hands have taught it. If sleep returns, keep it, the screw will not spin itself wicked. We rack the first jar, a length of cane as a siphon, mouth low, tail high, the upper layer travelling to a clean jar, the lower left behind for soap or vinegar's long patience. The cane speaks in tiny clicks of bubble and then falls silent. We pull before the last cloud, because greed makes oil remember what we would rather it forgot. A cork sits, a paper cap, ties a wafer, presses with the shops, small seal key, and scales another quiet circle closed. We wash carpaccios again. The trough water turns olive, then tea, then river. We carry it to the orchard's foot and let it cool the roots of a fig that has never required applause to make sweetness. The mats go back to pegs, a breeze finds them and learns to be kind. Mid-afternoon calls for cleaning the runners. We lift the donkey's beam, tie it back to the post, and wedge the runners off the paste line with wooden levers. A brush and warm water talk to granite. We scrape the gutter with a wooden spatula, so stone will not learn iron where it should not. The floor near the pit gets sand, and a broom sand takes the slick, broom takes the sand, and both agree to leave the stone honest. This is the one soft image we allow. A single green drop from the funnel's lip hesitates, and then chooses the jar, then back to broom, brush, and the busy gestures that do not wake anyone. A cooper rolls in a small cask for storage, a boater that will not see wine, only lamp oil for the parish and 4 rooms like ours. We rinse it with warm water, then with a bowl of oil we will not sell, just so would learns the new guest. The boater breathes like something that cannot blush and would not if it could. We chalk oil only with a sun above the words, so even a man who cannot read will not teach wine to ask the wrong questions here. A woman from the town asks for pumice for soap. We shovel a measure into a basket lined with sackcloth, weigh it on the platform scale, write a number on a card, and tie it with string that opens without a knife. She leaves a coin and a cent of lie she will not make until the moon is ready. The book receives the same small line it gives everyone else. This is the anchor line. Platform scale pointer. Chalk mark on boater. Book short sentence, lamp steady, key faithful. If your eyes rest, the day will not slide from under you. Toward evening we fill amphoneck jars for the road. A funnel sits, a ladle moves, and a line of cotton filter in the neck catches what linen did not. We wipe rims with a linen that learned to be lintless by being itself. Cork seats with a twist and a palm. We tie over them with parchment circles and brush a thin ring of wax, not to brag, to keep dust from becoming a habit. Each jar gets a wafer pressed flat key and scales and a number the book knows. The donkey receives his handful and a nose rub that owes him nothing and therefore means something. We brush his beam with oil and hang it. The boy sweeps olive pits to a basket. They will dry and learn to be fire when rain makes wood dreadful. The kettle goes out with a sigh that turns to a thought about tomorrow's water. The troughs rest. This is the anchor. Mats on pegs, runners clean. Jars capped, lamp smaller beam scale, under its cloth key a dark smile on the white wall. If sleep arrives, let it. Oil does not benefit from audiences after dusk. We copy the day into the ledger. Baskets ground. First run jars filled. Second run held for soap. Racking done onto jars. Boater rinsed. Carpaccios brushed. Donkey even. We add one margin note. Wine from East, fruit cool good. The page accepts the line, keeps its breath, and looks as if it were always meant to carry that sentence. We lower the lamp wick to a blue bead. Touch the tinaja next warm. Not hot, and lay the funnel to dry onto sticks, so its mouth will not learn a dent. The beam scales pans cover under their cloth, like shoulders under a blanket. We lift the mill bar, the bar answers with wood that talks and then falls still. The long key turns a quarter, the lock smiles its iron smile and makes the day hold. For our last soft image, a glass on the sill catches the last light, and the oil inside looks like a river carrying a slow green moon. Then we leave the bench. This is the anchor line. Lamp a seed of blue, beam scale at 0, mill key on its now bow to the left, teeth to the right. The habit of this wall. If sleep arrives now, let it. Morning will find the runners clean, the carpaccios dry, the jars clear, and the 3 quiet things where a hand expects them.